There's dirt on my hands, strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to round 5 of the 2020 Karts To Computers Racing Series, Season 2. I apologize for the brief technical issues we had there at the beginning. My stream settings are usually pretty good at the very beginning, but occasionally they decide to fail on me, so this was indeed one of those cases. Now, as you noticed, I do have to put my dad's name up there in the bottom for the graphic for the commentator for tonight, because actually I was able to remove myself off of the graphics for tonight. So everybody, I know I was talking about it a lot over the course of the last 2 months or since the series started, that one day I would get myself off of that graphic, and well, I finally have. So already a milestone to start off our broadcast here tonight. Additionally, this graphic that I've been trying to put up forever regarding the information for tonight's track, Nurburgring Nordschleife, is finally up as well. So we're off to a good start here tonight with the broadcast. And there was a little intro video there I tried to put together, but unfortunately, I guess not all of it showed. So, well, tonight should be a good broadcast. I know tonight it's starting a little bit late. The track here tonight is putting way more strain on my equipment than I thought it might. So there was a little bit of added time that I needed to get everything figured out. But now we're all ready to go, and with only 4 minutes till we take the green flag, might not even have time for the race recap tonight. We might just have to hurry through and give you some information about Nurburgring, and then maybe somewhere in the middle of the race we'll do the race recap for this last race that we did for round 4 at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Sorry there, I was blanking for a minute, but yeah, so we come here to the lovely Nurburgring Nordschleife, and as you guys could see if you followed the series on Facebook, I've been kind of hyping it up a little bit. Oh, the network seems to have dropped out again. Oh, there we go. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm still having a little bit of internet troubles trying to get the server fired up. So, again, it's a very, very taxing track for sure. So I'm just trying to get everything warmed up here, and then hopefully we should be in perfect working order for the rest of the broadcast. But, again, first of all, welcome back to the Karts To Computers Racing Series. We come here tonight from by far the longest track in series history. Just for some reference points, Nurburgring Nordschleife, I think as you can see here on the little track display, tonight's track is 20.64 kilometers long. Now for context, of course, both of the two major speedway ovals that you run in the iRacing service, both Talladega and Daytona, are only 2.5 miles long. And you guys remember just how long the laps were at Talladega. Well, imagine here at Nurburgring. And for context, again, we don't have practice for tonight's, or we don't have qualifying for tonight's race, as the laps are, as I'm about to tell you, about 8 minutes long apiece. So for those of you that have never seen a race at Nurburgring, whether it be through the World of Sports Cars or honestly, I'm not sure what cars would still run the Nordschleife. Traditionally, they run the GP track that used to be used for F1 races, but well, the Nordschleife is a beast of its own. I kept calling it the Goliath in the on the Facebook post, and as you can see down there in our description, I am very excited to see just how our drivers are able to tame tonight's race. Because man, this track it's brutal in ways that are almost hard to comprehend. I have, in my personal time testing this track, I think I can get maybe 2 laps apiece out of the entire 10 race or 10 lap I should say race that we have tonight. I could probably go through a fifth of it without incident. So it's a track that 8-minute laps around a track where you can't really memorize anything because every corner is a new challenge to tackle. So it's going to be a difficult difficult drive for sure. And again, we got to kind of hurry through here because we're about to go green with no qualifying. We're going to go straight to the grid, which is auto determined based on the championship points, which only fitting that I show you guys those now. So as you can see here, our current championship standings in the Karts To Computers Racing Series Season 2. Your championship leader, much like last season, and now currently leading by 25 points, Mr. Logan Pacza for Logan Motorsports, quite fittingly enough, is your current championship leader there with 119 points. Following that, Andrew Bedrossian actually passed Michael Chrobok for the second place in the championship in our last race there at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, which, yes, I promise I'll get the recap for at some point in the broadcast. But yeah, so he now leads Michael by a single point. Both Lad Pedal Motorsports drivers, just for different affiliates. Bedrossian for the kind of one-man orange side of the Lad Pedal Motorsports team there, and then the Lad Pedal Motorsports blue driver, Chrobok, followed by Felino, also a fellow Lad Pedal Motorsports blue driver there. After that, Justin Lewick moved up 3 spots in the table there, all the way up to 5th. Well, I guess kind of tied for 5th with Devin Crosby there. And then a tie for, I guess, technically 7th between Max Preston and Marshall Crocker after that. So the 2 MJ Motorsports drivers moving up a cumulative 5 positions in the last race. So as you'll see in the race recap, they had a very successful race at Mossport last week. But, well, you see past that, Josh Gallagher, John Guerra, Jordan West, Manuel Guerra, Logan Ferguson, and Marco Felice will round out the field tonight. I'm not quite positive as to who our drivers in attendance are entirely for tonight. I know Marco Felice was unable to make it, so he will not be in tonight's race. He already missed a race earlier this season, so hopefully he maintains enough drop races so that he will still stay competitive in the championship points overall. So that will be tonight's grid in that order. So Logan Pacza will take the pole tonight, which he has several times at a road course, but tonight is the first time it has just been granted to him. And then after that, there are the team standings very quickly. Lad Pedal Blue leading with 159. After that, Logan Motorsports with 154. 118 and 117 for MJ Motorsports and Lad Pedal Green, respectively. After that, Lad Pedal Orange with 94 points, 88 for Diabolique Motorsports. M&M Racing with 87 and 43 for Blackout Racing, currently only driven by Jordan West. With all that, again, apologies, ladies and gentlemen, that I had to kind of hurry through all this, but again, when you have occasional technical issues trying to get a track fired up at all, well, you gotta kind of hurry through a little bit. So let me just throw up your starting grid for tonight's race, and we'll get all ready to go. There you go. You see the drivers there in practice. Practice has now come to an end, so let me throw up your race results, or I guess qualifying results, but we don't technically have qualifying. Actually, I wonder if I can show you the grid for tonight's race instead of the normal qualifying results. No, I guess not. I've never actually tried to display. Oh, there we go. Wow, we got the fancy graphics tonight. Interestingly enough, this is kind of an unusual order. This shouldn't be the order that we're running to start tonight's race. No, that is just completely wrong. So, apologies there, ladies and gentlemen. That is not quite the right order for tonight's race. That's the correct order, I guess, for practice. So our practice order would have been exactly that way. None of our cameras are even working here. Nurburgring is it's a difficult beast to tame for sure. Well, I guess we'll just go through the field then. We'll take this graphic down. So let me throw up the driver names quickly, and we'll head through the field to show you your starting grid for tonight's race. On the pole, we are going green right now. Everybody got on the grid very quickly, so holy crap, we're going green. Wow. What a pre-race show. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. The first turn here at Nurburgring, taken by Logan Pacza, your pole sitter. There in the background, Devin Crosby heads off track. We're just flying straight into the action here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. My goodness, let me just head through the field here. Didn't really have time to even intro that, so... Well, you can see here, Devin Crosby chasing down Marshall Crocker for that 6th position to start this race. Logan Pacza, again, your pole sitter to start off this 10-lap battle at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. After that is Andrew Bedrossian, the 2 Autopilot Motorsports blue cars, split up over the course of a few laps. A few corners, I should say. Rich Felino was already headed off the track. Almost backs into another driver. Somebody had to swerve to avoid him there. Manages to get by, but Felino trying to get back up to speed here. Devin Crosby with a massive incident. Oh my goodness, immediately starting this race off with chaos. Devin Crosby flipping through the air. He's losing parts as we speak. We're going to quickly check the replay on that and see exactly what happened there. But well, let's see. So he's coming down through, I think, you see Rich Felino in the background there after his incident. But this is probably like turn 6 of, well, several here at Nürburgring. This is a massive track, so I can't even name which one specifically. What an awkward bounce there. Crocker just bounces off the outside curb to come back on the track, and in doing so, I think he just barely clips Crosby. So Crosby will head back to the pits. Now, I didn't really even get a chance to intro this race for you, and exactly the kind of race we are dealing with tonight. We see in the background there, Chrobok and Bedrossian with a pretty good battle there for 2nd place. But, ladies and gentlemen, let me just actually talk about the race for a second, because haven't unfortunately got the chance to do so. Essentially, to summarize tonight, tonight's race will be 10 laps, as you can see there, up in the top in the graphic. But here at Nurburgring, we're actually not using any cautions for once, so this will be a road course unlike any we've ever seen in the series. Tonight's race will be 10 laps, again, no cautions, but there is a penalty point limit on exactly how many penalty points each driver can accrue throughout the race. That limit is 30. So as you can see there, a few new graphics. We've moved the track map, which is gigantic, because of course, Michael Chrobok getting off the track quickly, as I mentioned. Is he able to save it? He is indeed. So now he's going to cut the other side. Bold strategy here if this is intentional. I'm not sure what is happening there. Michael regains the track. He'll have to slow down and give up the time that he gained by going through the grass there, which means Andrew Bedrossian will make it by on the inside to pass for second. But overall, ladies and gentlemen, you're not here to see a race. You're not here to see any sort of traditional race format that we've seen throughout our series overall last season or this season. This is just a battle for survival. This is, well, I guess 10 guys on our starting grid tonight. Max Preston unfortunately didn't make it onto the grid, but this is 10 guys just battling through and trying to survive the most brutal track, I'd say, in iRacing history. Like, you can see how long they've been racing right now, and you see the track map there on the right. Look at how far they are through this total layout. The two kind of faint circles there at the bottom of your map, that's the starting line. Like, that's the finish line there. So they've only gone that far in this amount of time. That should give you just as good of an idea as possible as to how bad Nürburgring is in terms of size. And you see in the background there, Marshall Crocker. No, who is that? That just spun around. That's Jordan West running a black and red entry there for Blackout Racing. I haven't seen him run the red in I don't think ever, so it's kind of a different thing to see. Logan Ferguson in the background has also gone around, so this is what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So there's no cautions tonight. Incidents are entirely the responsibility of the driver to solve there. But that's the thing, is each driver has unlimited quick repairs tonight. So you can go to the pits as many times as you need, but the problem is if you have to tow back, that's a huge time penalty. You remember Devin Crosby had his incident a moment ago where he made contact off of Marshall Crocker Sr. and then flipped onto the guardrail. He's still in the pits now because he has to tow about 8 minutes back. So ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a race for position. This is a race for survival. This is who can make it around those 10 laps the quickest. And I know that was kind of a, unfortunately, a very, very quick intro to the race, but this is an insane race that I can't wait to see the results of. I know Logan Pacza has taken the start off quite handedly now. He's got about a 4.5 second lead and only the first half of the very first lap from Bedrossian and Chrobok behind him. But it's a level of difficulty that I almost can't fathom explaining to you guys, because again, I can make maybe 2 laps at this behemoth of a track, but after that I just kind of lose all semblance of understanding of where I am on track. You can't memorize anything. You're just kind of going entirely based on what you can see ahead of you. And maybe we'll go on board very quickly. I'll have to turn the sound down, but we'll go on board very quickly, maybe with Andrew Bedrossian here, as he's passed by Michael Chrobok again after his brief incident earlier. But now we're on board here with Andrew Bedrossian. So look at kind of these blind corners up here. So he doesn't know what's coming over this hill, presumably, unless he has memory skills unlike any I've ever seen. But you see him coming over the hill here into this hairpin up the top of this hill. But like, just look at some of these corners when he goes over blind hills. He doesn't know what any of these are. It's entirely a mystery to him until he makes it over. So that's kind of the magic of Nürburgring. Actually, this is a pretty famous hairpin that I'm sure many of you are familiar with if you've ever watched a race here at Nürburgring on iRacing. But besides, oh, Andrew's internet dropped out there for a moment. But besides a few notable elements, like it's hard to memorize anything here at Nürburgring. So it's entirely a case of reaction and strategy, and it's a very mental race. It's a very it's hard to explain. This is, if any race in our entire series history is going to determine who deserves the 33 or so points you get for winning a race, this is the one. Because again, you got to survive 10 laps. We see in the background, I think it's Rich Foligno there that says he's gone off track. Yeah, he's already running slow. You remember he had the damage from earlier. But again, because he has damage, even if you were to tow back to the pits, that would take about 10 minutes to complete. I mean, you'd get the quick repair, but the penalty that you have for towing all the way back to the pits on an 8-minute track is massive. So if you have damage, the best thing you can possibly do is try to survive and make it all the way around this giant track. And it's mentally taxing for sure, because if you have a damaged race car, everything in every fiber of your being is telling you to go back to the pits and just give up. But if you want any hope of winning this race, and other drivers, even if they have one incident, but are able to make it all the way back around and don't need a tow, it is a massive hindrance to your entire race to have to survive through that. So overall, it's the very best thing I can recommend is that drivers just do everything in their power to make it around without the need for the need for a tow back to the pits. And again, for context, just how long the lap is. So here we're on board with Manuel Guerra, who is now just about to go an entire minute down from Logan Pacza. And we're on lap 1, and they haven't had any incidents, and they're not running all that bad off the pace. They're running pretty well up to the pace. It's just, this track is massive, and the number of corners, which I'll actually mention in a minute, because we do have a few things to... I have a few bonuses in this race, a few surprises for our viewers, because obviously this is a very untraditional race, and a little bit unconventional for sure. So we do actually have trivia tonight, something a little bit different, because again, I knew that, well, in the spirit of a race that isn't really based around racing, and more so the idea of survival, I did kind of want to do something a little bit more focused on the viewers there, so I can kind of interact with you guys a little bit. So when we go to commercial, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the side-by-sides, the traditional format I often do. But when we go to the side-by-side, we do have actually trivia questions that I can throw up for you guys that are in the corner there, and then I will answer those at the end of the race. And there's a little graphic I have for the winner who can answer the most of the 5 trivia questions. So those are 3 questions about the Nurburgring Nordschleife, one of the most famous tracks in the world, and then 2 questions about the series in general and its drivers. Back to the race currently. I haven't really had a chance to talk to it now that everybody's spread out, but this long backstretch, I guess it's kind of a backstretch as it leads up to the start-finish line. Unfortunately, I don't know all the corner names because there are a giant number of them, and the reason I keep not saying the exact number is because it is a trivia question for later. But well, you see there, Andrew Bedrossian makes the pass there on Michael Chrobok, but you see just how strong the slipstream is. Chrobok's going to get the slipstream right back and make the move again. Important to note, these guys are teammates, so I'd imagine that as the fact that they are talking on their own private channel means they're probably going to coordinate things like this, and they are going to avoid in all ways possible the possibility of crashing. But you see up there, up the top of the hill, Logan Pacza is just about to come around the final corner to complete the first of 10 laps in this race. So here we go. He makes the second to last left-hander there as he comes up through the chicane, makes the right-hander, and this is the front stretch at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. So still in the pits, I believe, is Devin Crosby. Not sure yet if he's come out. Same with Logan Ferguson. The 2 drivers just waiting to rejoin the track, but well, this is the first corner, so lap 2 here. Logan Pacza makes the first lap of the race final. Now let me just put up his lap time time by to give you context exactly how long these laps are. So Logan Pacza ran an 8:19.221. Very impressive time indeed, actually. The best time in practice was an 8:13, which again, 6 seconds sounds like a big margin, but when you take into consideration just how long these laps are, that's like a 1 second difference at any other track. So it's going to be something. Actually, I'll leave the I'll leave this kind of slide out lap times option where you'll the lap times will pop up as they go by, so you'll have a good idea of who's running how quickly throughout the course of the race. But well, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything possible that you guys want me to show throughout the course of the race, and this is an absolutely amazing race from the driver's perspective. I would be having a blast trying to run here, but you know, from a broadcast perspective, it's not the easiest job. So if you guys have anything you'd like me to talk about, feel free. We see here Rich Foligno making a pass on Marshall Crocker. I think they've both come into the pits. They have indeed. So I believe they both had leftover damage over the course of that lap, so they're going to come in, use their quick repairs, and they should be out momentarily. Again, that's the thing. You can use as many as you want, provided you don't hit that 30 penalty point limit. And with only 8 drivers currently in a race, 10 total, but of course Crosby and Ferguson are still getting towed from that previous incident. They had, I think, 4 corners in on lap 1 for Crosby, and then I think Ferguson's was a little bit later through the lap. Well, they do certainly have some time to kill when it comes to waiting for that pit stop, because again, towing, I imagine a real-life car being towed through this giant 22-kilometer behemoth of a track. Overall, it's a fun one, and again, I can't get across just how exciting this must be from a driver's perspective, and I think our interviews are going to be a lot of fun tonight. But well, when it comes to the actual race, this is it's a toughie to commentate for sure. So again, we'll get to trivia in a moment. I might even I'll probably ask the questions, then put them up on the side-by-side when I take breaks, because obviously this may be a 10-lap race, but again, with the laps being only 8 minutes, even with no cautions, it'll be an 80-minute race. So we should be able to get to interviews at about 9:20. So luckily, this it may seem like a long one with the race duration, but shouldn't be anywhere near as long as Talladega with avoiding cautions. So again, apologies, ladies and gentlemen, for exactly how quick the intro went by. Again, as a result of the chaos this puts on my laptop, the strain that it has trying to support this massive behemoth of a track like this, trying to process a track with this much scenery, and you can even see like the background mountains there and the things like that. So it's you can see in the background there the scenery, and I understand it's a little bit blurry, but this is a lot for a computer to try to handle, especially the broadcast. So sorry about the intro there, ladies and gentlemen. I tried to get it up as quickly as I could, but well, now that we are all good to go and we're all going green, now we can focus on the actual racing at hand for the 5th round of our series. Of course. Maybe I'll do kind of a spoken recap of our last race at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, but well, those who remember it will remember that your race winner was Logan Pacza the last time by. I believe winning his either 8th or 9th road course race in series history, so he is an absolute master of road courses, and hence why, even though he was kind of granted the pole position spot as a result of his spot in the championship with no qualifying, of course, he has made the best of it at the beginning of tonight's race, already broken away by about a 6 or second gap, second margin, I should say. They're behind him. You can almost not even see him there in the background coming up the hill. So this gap is working out quite well for Logan Pacza, and really it helps him focus, I'd say, in a way, because the less guys around you in your peripheral you have to worry about, the more you can just focus on the real task here, which is surviving the track at all. Let's actually look around the field a little bit now that we know where our top 3 sit. Here's Jordan West. I know Jordan had an incident a moment ago that put him back about 30 seconds. You can see his nose cone has a little bit of damage there. It's kind of a indent there where the very tip of the nose should be. So I'm not sure exactly what effect that would have on a car. I've never personally just broken that little tip of the nose in a Skip Barber, so I'm not exactly sure what negative impact that would have on speed or cornering ability, but for the time being, it appears to be going up to pace. I mean, he's not dropping back in that 31-second gap. It goes in the grass a little bit there, almost loses the back end of the car, but for the time being, he appears to be in pretty good order. So Jordan West, again, I don't believe he's had a top 4 finish this season so far. I believe he did last season. I think he might have even finished 3rd at our race at Daytona Road Course last season in the IndyCar. But looking around the field elsewhere, Logan Ferguson heads off the track. He has slid off there into the gravel. Let me just actually check on that and see what happened to him. Again, the only way I'll know is if I see it on the track map, because in such a giant track with so many quick off tracks, well, my program that normally tells me when incidents have happened is just going to be lying to me all race, because everybody will be going off the track constantly. Yeah, he seems he just locks up and makes contact with that inside curb. I'm curious because he does have damage, but he's got all 4 tires in the car, so he's at the beginning of the lap, but it would definitely be beneficial if he were able to make it all the way around. Appears to be back up to speed now. Let's see where he is live on track. Yeah, he appears to be doing his very best. You see oh my goodness. See the damage he's done to the front left tire of that car, but yeah, it's actually digging into the ground. But if he's able to make it all the way around, it'd be an impressive feat. And again, it would save him time, absolutely, because he's already used 1 quick repair throughout the course of this race. So if you're able to avoid using another, that would be in his best interest for sure. Looking back at the track map, everybody else seems to be up to speed at the moment. Looking around, there's not really any battles for position besides, of course, 2nd and 3rd for Chrobok and Bedrossian respectively for the 2nd position. But even then, Michael has kind of broken away from Andrew in the background there. You see as he comes over the hill. Oh, the trees are back too. We got all the old road course favorites. Again, Spa-Francorchamps will forever be the probably the first ballot Hall of Famer when it comes to worst tracks for trees. But well, this one certainly isn't quite as much of a difficult one when it comes to trying to deal with trees. Again, it's a much more wide open track when it comes to scenery, but again, you're kind of weaving through a forest in some parts and weaving along cliffs in others. So the cliff sections, you can avoid trees pretty well, but here, as you can see, it kind of goes through the wooded areas of this lovely German circuit. So also an important thing to mention when it comes to like track geography, that all the graffiti on the track is real. Like that, when you go to the Nurburgring Nordschleife, all of that graffiti is a real thing. I'm not exactly sure why it's there. I've often wondered, because I've never done research on it, but it is like an official, massive, one of the world's most famous tracks. So I get it's huge and probably hard to keep secure, but it is interesting that they did put the actual real-life graffiti there. You can see like hearts and stuff being drawn on the track, so kind of an interesting thing for sure. You can see actually the gap ahead to Logan Pacza is dropping by the 2nd. I'm wondering if something has happened to Mr. Pacza, because they're gaining about 4/10 on him right now, and here as he comes through this banked hairpin corner. Again, I don't know the exact name of it because it is in German. I do have the track map somewhere. Again, I'm going to have to show you guys all these graphics I prepared during the race, because obviously the intro was a little bit more hurried than I would have hoped. But actually, we'll go to it right now because Logan seems to be back up to speed. But just looking at the track map here. So here is the entire map of the Nurburgring Nordschleife. Now here are all the official corners on track. iRacing claims there are more corners than this, but of course the question is with things like chicanes, do you consider that 2 separate corners or 1 combined corner? I personally consider it 2 in the case of a chicane, but clearly the Germans that designed the Nurburgring Nordschleife disagree. So here's our track tonight. That hairpin corner is the Caracciolo Carousel, which probably looks easier than it sounds, but when you throw in like K's and C's and 2 C's and the ch sound, that's when you kind of lose me when it comes to speaking German, but hopefully that wasn't too bad. This long backstretch appears to be the Dodinger Hohe, so I will do my very best to refer to it as such throughout the race. Well, we get back to our racing action here, and it appears that Logan Pacza remains your current race leader, leading by about a gap of about 4.7 seconds. Again, I talked about it earlier. He dropped about a full second in that brief time we were watching him. He comes up through here through the final, technically a chicane, as he comes across the lap, or the final lap. He comes across the finish line for the start of lap 2. Now, actually, with this fastest lap of the race, that was an 8:18.594. That was instantly beaten by Michael Chrobok's 8:17.383. So an impressive lap time for him for sure. Bedrossian a little bit off that with an 8:19.00 or 066. But again, those are close laps, and that's kind of par for the course in our series with those three drivers who have been kind of the class of the field this entire season so far. But again, when you talk about a track as big as the Nordschleife, gaps of only half a second are minuscule. Like, that's very impressive that these drivers are going almost identical speeds around the giant German circuit we're running at here. So look in the track map, you can see that the top three are kind of in a postal code of their own. They've kind of broken off from everybody else behind them. After that, let me just see. Sitting in fourth is Jordan West. I'm not sure if he's actually pitted or what. No, he does remain out on track. Again, I mentioned that he has very minuscule front cone damage, but it appears that he does not want to get that fixed. So fair enough to him. I mean, it's not a huge burden to have to go through the pits once. It's about a 30-second gap, but you know, every second counts here. Jordan West is going to go around this long sweeping right-hander. The various elevations I find with like blind corners could be tricky to deal with, and that appears to be one of them. Obviously, the tires here on the skip arbors get better and better as they go. As you'll remember, if you watched the Mosport race, right, we talked about that, and how the longer you go on these giant cobblestone bricks that they call tires, the longer you can stay on them, the better traction you get out of them. But that was a case where I guess his tires just weren't quite up to the scuff that he would have liked, and almost lost the back end there, but he was able to save it fairly well. Only lost a couple of seconds to the guys in front. So Jordan West will remain only about 40 seconds back, which is really impressive here for only a few laps at the Nurburgring. Somebody else on track appears to have crashed. That's just the notification from Jordan. So you see Rich Foligno coming around the second lap of the race. He finishes up here. The Lad Pedal Motorsports blue driver sitting fifth in the field right now, currently in the exact midpoint. Running somewhere in the 9-minute range, which again isn't bad at all when it comes to a guy that's likely just trying to survive the track and get around it as best he can. Again, when I talked about that this wasn't a race against 9 other drivers, this is a race against the track itself. You see he heads off the track very briefly there, kind of slides through the infield. Well, infield is relative. I mean, it's an 18-mile facility, so it's infield is of course relative. I just want to look back elsewhere. Logan Ferguson, I'm not sure if he's parked. No, he just still has damage. Remember that busted front left tire he's got. He's going to head off the track into the wall. But yeah, remember, he's just got to survive and get back to the pits. And I know there's a 30 penalty point limit, but I mean, if he can just avoid that and get all the way back to the pits, get a new car. I mean, 8 laps is a long time here at the Nurburgring, but really, once you've made a mistake once in a track or in a corner you struggle with, well, then you can start to make changes and hopefully improve upon that corner you struggled with in the past. So looking elsewhere around the track, Marshall Crocker, my father, appears to now be 38 seconds back of the leaders. Nope, there we go, it refreshed. I was going to say that, just sounds wrong, but of course at a track this big, iRacing can occasionally struggle to try to compute exactly who is where. So now on board with Marshall Crocker Sr., my father, sitting currently in the 6th position, about 10 seconds back of Rich Foligno. I'm wondering if he's actually starting to catch up to him here. Let's go on board with Rich and then throw up the the lap time graphic just to see exactly whether or not that is the case. No, so my dad fell back about 13.3 seconds there that last time by, so well, it looks like that provided Rich is able to keep up this pace for the time being, he should be okay, until of course his tires get a little bit older and he needs to pit for fuel. Speaking of fuel, tonight's fuel load is not the full fuel load. It's a 75% fuel load capacity, so that is a limitation you can make to require the drivers to come in for more pit stops. So I would imagine we'll likely see the drivers pitting next time by here, probably at the very end of lap 3, maybe lap 4 if they're going to go for a longer strategy, but should be about a 2-lap race, just like, or sorry, a 2-stop race, just like our race at Mosport last week. So interesting to see when drivers exactly decide to come in. I would imagine with a track this large, they would all come in on probably the same lap. Logan Pacza would pit about 4.5 seconds ahead of Michael, so Michael will know when he comes in based on his telemetry in his car. So it'll be interesting to see if Michael and the rest of the Lad Pedal guys have their own strategy, or if they're just going to copy Logan and try to beat him on pure race pace. Historically, whenever Logan has lost at road courses, it has largely been because the strategy of other drivers just being a little bit better than his own. So curious to see if guys will try to do the undercut in the pits or something, or if they'll have something planned in that sense. Now going to the chat, How many laps of fuel? So again, speaking specifically of that, I think probably 3 or 4 based on the fuel load capacity. Again, I can't imagine anybody going further than that. I haven't personally tested it because, again, it's a lot more of a commitment than you'd think just to try to run 3 laps at this track. So, no, unfortunately, I've not had the time to practice enough myself to know the exact number. But see Logan here coming around one of the very few corners I recognize. Oh, sorry, I just checked the name of that. What was the name of that corner again? That is the... Where's my map? That... Oh, and it has disappeared. Well, apparently I don't know. My map can't even fully process itself. That's just exactly how big this track is. But we're probably going to go to our first break here, because for the time being, it looks like everybody is kind of fanned out. No battles to speak of as of right now. Important to note, though, Devin Crosby is starting to catch up to Marshall Crocker Sr. ahead of him, so we can very shortly cut to that and see if that battle progresses in any meaningful way. But looking around the track, everybody seems to have fanned out for the time being. Nobody's off the track or anything, so we'll quickly go to our first commercial break. And our first trivia question that we'll display in a moment when we go to commercial is, if I remember correctly, how many corners are there at the Nurburgring Nordschleife in total? So this is the official number of the track. This is the number that was displayed on the map, not necessarily how many iRacing thinks there are, because I think there's 154, and so does iRacing, but apparently the track itself disagrees. So this is entirely, I'll give you 3 options, like don't look it up obviously, but this is entirely speculation. Take a wild guess at how many corners there are at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and while you do that, I will be away on break, and we'll be right back in a moment with round 5 of the 2020 Karts To Computers Racing Series Season 2 at the gigantic Nürburgring Nordschleife.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
And we're back. There we go. Okay, so the stream appears to be back there, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we're going to have a few little gaps like that in the action. But, oh, we see Devin Crosby go wide there in his attempt to catch Crocker. Kind of wipes out a little bit there into that gravel trap on the outside of the corner. One of several. Nurburgring kind of switches up where exactly it puts some of its gravel traps. Occasionally it's just grass like we saw Michael Chrobok run through earlier in the race, and occasionally it's legitimate traps like that one. We see Logan Pacza up front at the front of the field coming around for the beginning of lap 4. Decides not to pit, so same with the 2 drivers behind him. Chrobok once again runs the fastest lap of the race, with Andrew Bedrossian right behind him running an almost identical lap time as well. So the top 3 decide not to come in this lap, so I would assume, I can almost guarantee that the start of lap 5 is when they will come into the pits to answer our previous question. I believe David Paxa, a very frequent commenter, which is always nice. So the answers of 2 drivers were, or sorry, of 2 people in the YouTube chat was 46. So again, to remind you guys, the answers, or the options to pick from, were 46, 73, or 88. Again, the winner will end up on a graphic at the end of the night. Unfortunately, I can't do like a fancy prize or anything, as much as I'd like to, but I will put your name up at the very end of the broadcast. So for the time being, we have 2 people saying 46. Anybody else in the broadcast, feel free to just throw it in the chat. Again, I won't specifically call anybody out or ask too many questions, so feel free if you have a guess. 46, 73, or 88. How many corners do you think are at the Nürburgring Nordschleife officially? You can even see the track map there. I don't know if you want to count. I don't think I could. I think some of them are too subtle and slight to actually notice there on the track map. But, well, to a race in general, and actually speaking of the actual action on track itself, well, let's now go live with Andrew Bedrossian, who in the last few laps may be running almost identical lap times to those ahead of him, but he's actually dropped back about 8 seconds from Michael Chrobok in this last lap by. So Michael appears to just be starting to pick up the pace there, maybe trying to catch Logan on track under green. Of course, important to mention, I don't believe Michael has a career road course win in our series. I mean, I talked about 2 races ago for round 3 when we went to Charlotte Motor Speedway in the IndyCars that Logan did get his first oval win in the history of our series. And now Michael has to get a similar monkey off his back. I don't believe he's won a road course race in history. I believe all 4 of his series wins have come at ovals. So tonight would definitely be proving something to both himself and the viewers at home, especially at Nurburgring Nordschleife, which, if you're ever going to win a road course and prove your ability at road courses in general and not just ovals, this is the one to do it at. So currently on board with Andrew Bedrossian. You see just how tricky this track must be. We're going to go on board with him again quickly. Sorry, the audio there decided to fade out, but back now. But let's go on board here with Andrew Bedrossian in the 22 car. Again for Lad Pedal Orange there, but it's a pretty loud engine, so I'll have to talk over it. But you just look where he is on track, though. He's kind of in a pretty simple section if you see on the track map, but he's about to head into a flurry of corners, which I believe are all downhill. So this one in particular I've had trouble with in the past, if it's the one I think it is. But you see just how much he's getting the back end around. Like, he's got the hands working there on the wheel, as you can see. He has the camera up a little bit high, so unfortunately we can't see his hands, but you can see how he's working the wheel and trying to get the back end around when necessary. Important to note, Devin Crosby has come into the pits, I would imagine for damage there. Now back up to speed, returning to the track. I believe he's in like corner 3 or 4 as we speak, but we're back to Bedrossian here. Coming around the track at a pretty decent pace. He's still losing about a second or two every maybe minute or so to Michael Chrobok ahead. Michael was actually gaining time to Logan Pacza, but he's dropped back about 3/10 since I mentioned him a moment ago. But look at these corners here. I mean, you got to get the back end around hard in some of these, and again, when they're blind corners and you can't memorize any of them, you got to really go based on your senses and trying to react whenever you can and get your hands moving at all times. Well, of course, trying to not keep your back end from heading around, because of course too much hand movement on cold tires in a Skip Barber can send it around almost immediately, but he appears to be managing it quite well for the time being. I do just want to quickly mention exactly why it's so hard for my computer to manage to display the Nurburgring Nordschleife, because look at all the detail in the background. Like, I understand some of the tree textures can be a little bit simplified for sure, but overall, I mean, you can see the mountains in the background. This is something you never have to deal with when you try to compute any other track in our series. Oh, you see him touch the inside curb there, but he appeared to save it quite well. But on Sunday, for our next race of our series, for round 6, we go to Michigan, which we ended the last season off on for round 10, those of you will remember. Actually, Andrew's first race, fitting enough while he's here. But yeah, you remember we went to Michigan International Speedway in the NASCAR Xfinity cars. On Sunday we head there in the NASCAR Cup cars. But thinking about Michigan, I mean, you guys remember that track. It's a pretty simplified oval. At the very minimum, or at the very most, they probably have to do like a few billboards in the background, maybe a screen or two, and that's it. But for Nurburgring, they decided to go all out there at iRacing and kind of display everything they possibly could. You see these giant cliffs with the trees in the backgrounds, and it's just it's a giant thing to try to display and a giant thing to try to compute. So it's hence why exactly it is so difficult at times to try to get this thing to load. So again, unfortunately, it did mean that our broadcast tonight started a little bit late, but hopefully with some of the things I have prepared, it'll be I'll be able to make up for it post-mortem after that. So, well, again, I'll check back in the chat, see if we have any more answers. Somebody says 160, which is a pretty fair answer. That would have been my guess. Again, 154 is the official number. But again, the three actual options, the official answers are 46, 73, or 88. Back to the racing action, Andrew Bedrossian just falling himself out of the inner loop there, the kind of the bowl-shaped curve there, and the hairpin that is known as... Oh, I have my map up somewhere. Let me just check quickly. That is the Crucial... The Crucial Sops something. Crucial Soaps? I don't know. It has a name. It just my track map isn't currently one to tell me. But again, it's maybe I'm just putting too much of a German accent on everything. But personally, I don't speak German, so some of these more complicated corner names I couldn't tell you. We'll now head back to maybe a wider perspective there on Andrew, just to see exactly get a better idea of what corners he's heading through and exactly what kind of a view he has for each one. Because now he heads off to the very varietal elevation section of the track, because I know this is kind of a very long downhill as we come onto our backstretch there. That, speaking of the backstretch, I think Logan Ferguson is just about to enter onto it. Logan appears to have his damage fixed from the last lap, so he should be up to the pace where he won't be lapped by Logan Pacza. I think he's about a minute or two ahead of him on track, which, again, normally you'd hear a minute or two, and you wouldn't expect anybody to be anywhere near getting lapped, but again, at the Nurburgring Nordschleife, it's just kind of par for the course at times. Back up there to the front for Logan Pacza, who has kind of maintained his lead to Michael Chrobok almost identically, still sitting there at 4.6 seconds. Speaking of these two drivers specifically, really all series, and in the history of our series, not just this season, but the way in which they are able to keep almost identical lap times boggles my mind. Like, these two drivers at every track seem to just be tick for tack in every way, almost identical. So it's fun to see. I mean, we have two guys that any single race, I don't think there's one race that one is going to excel at that the other can't. It's just something about the two guys that make our championship battles so fun, whether it be last year or this year. Of course, speaking of championship battles, I mean, Andrew Bedrossian passed Michael Chrobok for second in our last race there at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, so really I should factor him into that final 3 battle for the championship as well. Maybe I can throw up the point standings again in a minute for those that would like it, but again, I mean, you talk about those 3 drivers, they've just kind of been the head of the pack all season. Anywhere else, so let me just look back in the field, trying to think of who else in the points is battling for position. I mean, Justin Lillick, I believe, is back up to 4th, but he did not start the race tonight. I didn't even notice that before we started, so not exactly sure why. In all understanding that he was going to be here. I actually wonder if he would want to come in and do commentary if he's not joining the race. I could always check in and see if he is free. Let me just grab my phone here and text him. Again, I know how much everybody seemed to enjoy it last time when he was able to make it out, so I would be more than happy for him to show up. But again, looking around elsewhere on the track, we talked about how Devin Crosby was catching my father, Marshall Crocker Sr. there for a bit. Of course, Devin decided to come into the pits, so that never became of relevance. We go right behind a tree. This is iRacing. The way they program their cameras, I give them credit sometimes, but others, they just put them in such baffling locations that I'm kind of amazed they ever decide to put them there at all. Logan Pacza will become your first driver on the lead group to come into the pits here, as well as Michael Chrobok, and I believe Andrew Bedrossian will likely come in this time. Logan's going to pull up to his invisible pit stall there. Of course, they have an animated version of their pit crew that is working on their car as we speak, but unfortunately I think at most we just get to see their cars moving up and down as they get the repairs done. Andrew Bedrossian does indeed come into the pits this time. We can see him entering down pit road there in the bright orange car for Ladapetta Motorsports Orange as we speak. So your top 3 drivers are all in the pits looking for more fuel. Not tires for sure, because their tires could go much longer than this if they needed them to, but nope, for the time being it's just fuel and go here for Logan Pacza, who will head out of the pits with Michael Chrobok right behind him. Logan will head through the first corner, and now it's important to mention Logan will be on newer tires, which again, at any other track would be a good thing, but at a Skip Barber race, they can be absolutely brutal at the start of the lap, so Logan has to focus on warming those up and trying to avoid incident however possible. Let's actually just head on board with Logan and see how much his hands are moving here in an attempt to get the tires up to any semblance of warmth that would be good enough to go around the track at pace. Jordan West will now come into the pits there that time for I believe the first or second time. No, he didn't pit for damage earlier, so that would be his first time through the pits this time. Jordan West running an 8:31 actually, not bad at all. Only about 11 seconds slower than the guys ahead of him, which, again, at a track that is 8 minutes long like the Nordschleife, 11 seconds is a pretty impressive margin for sure. Let's head on board with Logan Pacza. He's going through this long, occasionally banked straightaway, which means that he shouldn't have too much issue when it comes to his tires, but corners like this can be tough trying to get the back end around, and of course this race will not be over until it's done, ladies and gentlemen, because when I say that anybody can spin here, anybody can spin. Like Logan, I think, had a few spins in practice. I know Michael did, I think, maybe once or twice that I've seen. So guys here make mistakes, no matter how quick they might be. And I mean, we're about halfway through the race, or at least we will be at the end of this lap. But again, this is not over till it's over. This corner in particular, and old tires can be absolutely brutal to deal with. But good on Logan to make it through without any incident there, keeping the back end under him. And again, moving hands can be an absolute deficit in your driving style, but it can also be a great thing here at Nurburgring when it comes to trying to slide the back end around. Not only does it get the tires up to temperature, but it does keep the car in a consistent pace of well, you're constantly on the gas. You don't have to like lift excessively into corners, which again can help your tires in the long run. So proper strategy here for Logan if he wants any hope of finishing this entire race without incident, which currently he's done. So props to Logan. Impressive work by the current series champion. I mean, fitting enough that our current series leaders having such a successful race. But looking back in the field a little bit, Michael Chrobok there in the HPSP Simulations Skip Barber car. The number 3 appears to be having a good race day overall. He's stayed in that kind of 4-second bubble for the longest time now. Now he drops back of almost exactly 5 seconds to Logan in front of him. So finally that bubble has been broken, but no, he falls back into it again. And again, 8 minutes when you do it 4 times. We're now about a half an hour into this race. But a half an hour to only lose 5 seconds to somebody else at a track this difficult and with this many corners is absolutely impressive. And I pride the 2 of these drivers on it, because to know that they were running almost identical times in practice and they're still running almost identical times now makes me wonder if Logan were to make a few small mistakes and Michael were to catch up there, just how exciting of a battle we could see for position here for the win. So back to the chat. It appears we only have 3 answers currently for the trivia, so if anybody wants to throw a guess out there before we head to our second trivia question and our second break in just a moment. Looking around the track elsewhere, I'm trying to think of who exactly I haven't given much attention to yet. Maybe we'll head back to go back to Manuel Garrow. Maybe we'll go to the 2 Diabolic Motorsports cars there. I think Manuel is just about to head into the pits, if I'm not wrong. Yep, he is indeed on pit entrance, so Manuel Garrow will come into the pits for the first time this race. As well, John Garrow, who I believe is also coming through that same section of track. Pit entrance is coming up there on the right momentarily. Let's see if the other Diabolic Motorsports car decides to come in, just as his brother did. Actually doesn't, so John Garrow decides to stay out there. Bold move if he does indeed think he can make it on fuel. You see in the background there the identical yellow and black car in the background there. That is Manuel Garrow, so John Garrow will take the position there and move up to, 8th. So actually nice lap time there by John, able to keep it under 9 minutes. And really, if you're under 9 minutes, you're not doing too bad at all here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Up front, again, Michael seems to be making up ground once. What is that shot, iRacing? Come on, there we go. Finally actually showing a driver for once. But yeah, you see here Michael Chrobok, right as I was about to say it, he got down to about 4.2 seconds behind Logan, and then he dropped about 8/10 in those couple of corners. So with a track as difficult as this one, certain guys excel in certain areas. I know high-speed corners versus low-speed corners. Certain guys are better at certain things, just as how their throttle control skills and their ability to seesaw the wheel go. But you see Michael dropping back a little bit this time by. I think we're going to maybe stay on board with him for the remainder of our next break. But I don't actually remember what our second trivia question was, so you will have to wait until we pull up the graphic. But for the time being, we're going to stay on board with Michael Chrobok as he falls back into that 4-second bubble, gained a few tenths that time. And there's Logan Pacza in the background as we come down this long swerving straightaway there. We're going to head on board with Michael Chrobok and go to our second break of the day. Thank you again, everybody, for watching the 2020 Karts To Computers Racing Series, Round 5 at Nurburgring Nordschleife.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
And we're back at the Nurburgring Nordschleife for round 5 of our season 2 of the Karts To Computers Racing Series. Important note, Michael Chrobok, in the time that we were showing him there, already made up about a full second there to Logan Pacza ahead, now falling into that 4-second bubble as we come through the, I guess the 3rd of 5 sectors here, maybe 4th of 6, not exactly sure how many we have. Looking up front ahead a little bit, Logan Ferguson appears to have headed off track. Huge damage for the number 2 car there of Logan Ferguson. Let's see exactly what led him to that point. I know he's been having a little bit of trouble all day, but you see there's just a little bit of damage left over from a previous incident. Comes here into the blind right-hand turn, gets in the curb a little bit too hard, and almost bounces completely over the guardrail. Just makes massive contact there on the inside. I think loses a tire entirely, but it might have actually teleported back onto his car. I know we did see that last week. Not wondering if that's the case again. Logan just trying to get up to speed, almost on the racing surface. He needs to watch out because there are drivers coming up behind him real quick. Let's see Andrew Bedrossian's on board, make sure that he doesn't hit him. Because that's the last thing you want, is to end your race, not as a result of the track, but as a result of the cars around you. It's a blind corner, so hopefully he sees him a little ways in advance. There, see, I think you can see Logan Ferguson up ahead in the background as he comes up the hill there. Yeah, that great car there of Logan Ferguson. So he's on the outside. Andrew's going to pass him clean underneath. There we go. Good to see. So again, you always want to avoid anybody getting in an unnecessary incident that relates to another driver. If it's an incident involving the track where they were just to make contact with a guardrail or something, I mean, that's just part of the challenge. But, you know, you never want to see lap cars affecting the races of the others around them. So this is a bold camera angle for sure, a very long front stretch, but I probably wouldn't have done that long pacing shot where it waits for the driver to get into frame. This is actually a perfect frame to show you the current gap between Logan and Michael for the top 2 positions. Of course, Andrew about 20 seconds back of Michael after that. Looking elsewhere in the field, everybody actually seems to be on their own minute, in a sense. Everybody's about a minute apart there. Jordan West about a minute and a half back of the drivers ahead of him. Rich Foligno then about a minute back of Jordan. Then a minute back of that is Marshall Crocker, my senior, my father. About 40 seconds back at him is John Garrett. Then his brother Manuel is about probably 25 seconds back at him. So everybody seems to have spread out for the most part, which is good because it means I can show them properly on the track map. But good thing to note is that everybody, I believe, is currently still in the race. No, Devin Crosby appears to have dropped out. Where is he on track? He was having a great job there in practice. It wouldn't have been his penalty points, I don't think. I don't think he's run long enough to drop out of the race yet. So Logan will come across the line for the 6th lap of our race. Of course, we did go to commercial a moment ago, and I will reference the trivia question in just a sec. But another important thing to note, I guess it was as a result of them pitting, but this was a lot slower of a lap for the two drivers here. So about probably half a minute slower. So 30 seconds you can assume is the duration of a pit stop here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. Again, Skip Barber pit stops are a little bit longer than traditional stops like a NASCAR or an IndyCar, but obviously pit road is a little bit shorter because it's a shorter front stretch. So about 30 seconds you can take, give or take, for a pit stop each time. So I'm wondering if they pitted on, because they pitted on the very beginning of lap 5, I guess they'd have to pit right before the last lap of the race if they were to pit for fuel properly. I'm wondering if either a driver will go for the endurance strategy and try to avoid pitting again over the course of the end of this race, or I guess hypothetically they could pit early in order to have even newer, sorry, I guess older but higher quality tires for the end of the race if it were to come down to a battle like that. I mean, again, you'd always want to avoid any on-track passes if you need to. I mean, any strategy that can allow you to just win the race without having to interact with any other cars in addition to the track itself would be ideal, but you never know. I'm not going to attempt to assume the strategy of drivers on track because, again, I don't know what's going through their head. I don't know what they think is the best means to get to the end of these 10 laps. So whatever they feel is best will likely be what I would also do. So, but again, we do talk about the last trivia question there. Let's check the chat. Sorry, I missed the answer for the turns. I have yet to reveal it. I'll probably do it over the course of the race and let you guys know how you're doing. I was going to do them all at the end, but the options, just for a reminder for those of you out there, for the elevation. So what is the maximum and minimum difference in elevation at the Nurburgring Nordschleife? Or to put it a better way, the lowest point on the track in terms of height above, I guess, sea level, and the highest point, what is the difference between them? And the options are roughly 500, roughly 800, or roughly 1,000 feet. Those are your 3 options. Let me just, again, check around the track. Doesn't appear to be anybody making up too much ground. Jordan West, I think, has actually made up a little bit of ground this lap, so I think he was down all the way to like 128 at a certain point in this lap, but he's moved up to 123 on Logan Pacza, so again, a real shame that Jordan had an incident earlier that required him to make an extra pit stop, because otherwise I would make an argument that he could probably be up there with the top 4 right now. Again, we're still on board with Logan Pacza. We'll head to a different driver just to kind of run around the track with, because I feel bad repeatedly showing one driver when it's really just watching guys head through different sections of the track. Again, you can see Logan Pacza in the background there, Michael Chrobok's view. Every time he goes through certain corners, you can see Logan up ahead. Let's, well, he actually gets the back end around pretty hard that time, but manages to save it. Again, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just trying to look around for things to talk about, because now that everybody's spread out, this is exactly what I kind of feared would be the case. Oh, actually, he's going to lock up a little bit there. Manages to save it. Again, every time you lock it up in a Skip Barber car, we even saw it a moment ago with Logan Ferguson. Remember, he locked it up there coming into one of the hairpins and bounced over the curbing and hit the outside wall. That's more frequent than you'd expect at tracks like this, especially at Nürburgring, where one lockup that you come in a little bit too fast into a blind corner that, especially if it's kind of a slow banked corner, you could head into the outside wall almost immediately. So good to see everybody's avoided that fate so far. It's actually getting closer and closer to Logan every time I see this view. So but again, 4.5 seconds separates the top 2 drivers there, the 1 and the 3 car respectively of Pacza and Chrobok. Well, I think now that we have the time, I'm going to reveal the answer to the very first trivia question of the race, which was, of course, how many turns are there at the Nürburgring Nordschleife officially? I believe the options were 46, 73, or 88. And the correct answer was, for those of you wondering in the chat, 73 is the official number of corners at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, as they officially put it. So let me just throw up the track map one more time while we have a moment to show you exactly what corners those are. So again, they might not all be named. There probably aren't 73 names total on the track map. But there are indeed officially 73 corners according to the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So again, iRacing claims they have 154, because if you include separate corners with one name as one corner, or as multiple corners, then it could be a lot higher number. Think back to Eau Rouge there at Spa last year. Remember that uphill famous corner there? The uphill left, right, and then another left? Well, the question is, do you count that as one corner with one name, or do you count it as 3 separate corners? And if you count it as 3 separate corners, the number would be 154 for the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And if you don't, it would be 73. So that is the answer to your first official trivia question so far. I don't think anybody got it, actually. I think a lot of people were guessing 46, which, if you go based on the names, 46 is correct. 160, Keith, was a bold guess. And again, you're not actually too far off the 154 number if you include everyone as separate, but, well, looking around elsewhere. Look at that, Logan Ferguson. Yeah, he's actually out of the race, unfortunately. I just saw that in the chat. He has decided to call it quits, as well as Devin Crosby, so Devin, for making it further on the lap before he quit out of the race, means that Devin will get the position there. So 9th and 10th for those two guys respectively, and that's a real shame because, you know, they Devin especially was putting in a ton of practice here. I think he had the fastest lap of our practice session yesterday. He came very close in today's warm-up, so that's a real shame to see him drop out. Not exactly sure what the case there was. I guess it must have just been penalty points or something of that sort, but that's a shame to see. I'm still trying to talk to Justin Luke in the background, see if I can get him to join the broadcast. Not sure if he's watching out there, but if you are, Justin, feel free to hop on the Discord and hop in the booth with me. Not sure what this view is. iRacing is, there we go. We back on board with Logan Pacza, our current race leader. 3.5 seconds now is the gap between him and Michael Chrobok for second. Let's actually go to the rear view here on Pax's car and see exactly where Michael is in the background. If we get a longer straightaway, we should see him coming over the hill there. Yep, the light blue car of Michael Chrobok you see there in the background. Hopefully you can see him past the track map here. We're going to quickly actually head on board, I guess, with Michael Chrobok, and we're going to head to audio only here for a moment. Or actually, you know what? Maybe we're going to head to another side-by-side. I think that would... let's get another trivia question up there, and then once we put up the third trivia question, we'll answer the second one about the track elevation. So everybody lock in your answers for what is the difference between the maximum and minimum track height here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Again, your options are 500 feet difference, 800 feet difference, or 1,000 foot difference. So those are your three options. We'll go to your third commercial break for your third trivia question. And for the time being, we're going to ride on board with Michael Chrobok.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
And we're back here for round 5 of the 2020 Karts To Computers Racing Series, Season 2, at the lovely Nurburgring Nordschleife. Since we went on that on board, it appears Michael has lost maybe about 0.4 of a second to him in that little gap, so maybe it's just bad luck to head on board with Michael while he's driving, and now you see him heading through this awful camera for this long backstretch, but apparently it worked that time by, so Michael getting back up to speed, gained a 10th there, and now he will continue his charge ahead to Logan Pacza, still your current race leader, and has led every single lap of this race so far. But as they come across the start-finish line for the beginning of lap 7, we will now get to your third trivia question of the day. So as you saw there on the trivia break, the question was, Logan actually runs the fastest lap of the race. Let me just check what that is. I know the purple font makes it hard to see. Then Michael one-ups him almost immediately. So back and forth. Again, I make the analogy a lot, but it's like that hand on the back game from the... what is it, the 80s probably, it would have been most relevant, but two guys just going back and forth trying to one-up each other. So Michael Chrobok again trying to chase down Logan, and he's getting closer and closer lap by lap. But your what year was in what year was the first ever race at the Nurburgring Nordschleife run? Your options were 1927, 1945, or 1968. Now, of course, I guess the condition of the world would kind of take into effect as to exactly what the answer would be, because of course, we have lost connectivity very briefly here. Not sure if you guys can still hear me. Hopefully you can. It's weird because my internet issues don't seem to affect the actual feed itself. Usually when I have internet issues, I lose connection to the server, but that does not seem to be the case right now. I'm just losing connection with the stream itself. So, well, we're back up to speed. Everything appears to be all right. But back to the trivia question. So 1927, 1945, or 1968, what year do you believe the first race ever in Nurburgring Nordschleife was run? We're actually going to head back in the field a little bit because Marshall Crocker has John Garris starting to catch him in the background. Rich Foligno has crashed somewhere on track. Huge damage to his front nose. All 4 tires in the car, and he actually does get up to speed pretty quick, but we're going to go to a quick replay there before I answer the second of the 5 trivia questions tonight. Looks like he was already squirrely a little bit before that, so he's already got the back end around. I think he has very similar damage to what Logan Ferguson had, so you see the front end damage there, trying to keep it straight, heads through a little bit on the curb and tries to cut off the corner, just loses the back end, and massive front end damage to the, I guess that's the outside wall heading into whatever turn that might be. He was able to save it, and he hopefully should be able to make it back to the pits. Let's see exactly where he's on track. So he's about heading down towards the final backstretch, which should be an easy section to keep the car in one piece, but got a few more difficult corners to make it around before you can make it to the backstretch, and with your nose sitting way out of alignment, well, that is easier said than done for sure. But your answer to the second trivia question, I almost forget what it was. Sorry, it was the one about elevations. So the difference in elevation between the minimum and maximum point on the track. Oh, sorry, we lost the feed there for a second. But the difference between the minimum and maximum point on the track is of 500, 800, and 1,000 feet. The correct answer is 1,000 feet. Sorry, I believe the exact answer is 984, but I did the approximation because 984 sounds a little too exact. So almost 1,000 feet difference between the lowest point and the highest point on this one track, which I think is insane. That would be a reasonable height for like a small mountain, let alone an entire track surface. I can't reasonably tell you exactly where the high and the low points on track are. I wish I could, and it'd be really cool if I could, but unfortunately I don't know specifically. Good to see Rich Foligno has made it onto that long backstretch, so he should be able to make it to the pits in one piece without the car heading around on him one more time. Maybe we'll stand board with him a little bit until Michael starts to catch Logan again and see if that is indeed the case. But the only other real battle on track right now is hypothetically for 7th between Marshall Crocker and John Guerra. John about 9 or 8 seconds back at the moment, sitting at about 9 seconds pretty consistently throughout the race so far. So we will see if that battle develops momentarily. But we will head to your 4th trivia question momentarily. Again, I almost feel bad for making the breaks because I could just ask them. I'd have to actually go check what they are because I probably should have written them down, but unfortunately I didn't because I can be kind of a dunce at times. So let's see if I can pull it up there secretly. Okay, well that's okay. Well, maybe we can do the this next trivia question without having to go to a break. Let's actually check the old answers. I didn't see what people put for the elevation question. So both David and Keith put 1,000 feet, and then Heather had 800 feet. So currently it is a tie for first place between David and Keith at both answering that last question correct. We will go to the next question momentarily. But for the time being, Rich is going to make it back to the pits. So good on Mr. Rich Foligno, able to make it back, and should be able to make it through with one more quick repair. Well, he's got unlimited quick repairs left, but he has a quick repair to burn. So there we go. He will get his car all fixed up. You see there almost instantaneously it is back to speed, and we're going to head back in the field a little bit to maybe John Guerra. We haven't really ridden on board with him at all today, so let's watch him and see exactly how he does here in, well, I guess not exactly corners anymore because he's heading out of that long backstretch, whose German name I've already forgotten. We'll head back to the leaders momentarily, but again, the gap between Logan Pacza and Michael Chrobok hasn't shrunk thus far, so we can focus a little bit more on trivia for the time being. Yay! So, your 4th question for tonight's trivia. Those were the only 3 questions about the Nurburgring. So, the year its first race was run, the maximum and minimum elevation, and then the number of corners, or I guess number of corners officially. Those were your only 3 Nurburgring questions tonight. But now as John Guerra drifts off the track very quickly, appears to regain his composure there. Not sure exactly what's happening to his car there. I'm not sure if he has damage. It appears his back end is kind of wobbling around on him. So, hopefully he's able to get to the pits if necessary here. Yeah, he's definitely losing speed to the guys ahead, so I'm wondering if he made contact there that I may have just missed, and that's why his car is running a little bit off the pace. He's almost made it back to the pits, though, so maybe we'll head up there to Marshall Crocker Sr., my father, in 7th position. But, no, he's running a little bit slowly as well. Not sure. Oh, he's heading into the pits. That would make sense, so he'll head in, get the repairs I guess he needs, or maybe he's doing it for fuel. In terms of fuel, this would be his last pit stop, so if he's trying to win this thing into fuel strategy, well, I mean, he's got a little bit of a ways to go, but again, if you're in this position and there's not really anybody around or ahead or behind you, well, it never hurts to try to maybe switch up your fuel strategy and get whatever positions you can. Meaning that now that he's come in, we'll head back up to your leaders, Logan Pacza. We haven't checked on him in a little bit. The gap now below 3 seconds in this current part of the track. I know that occasionally it can fluctuate quite a bit, but you see Michael is getting closer and closer every second. we'll head on board with Michael Chrobok as we head to our 4th trivia question of the night. But again, those are your only 3 Nurburgring trivia questions of the night, so now is trivia question 4. We'll put it up in a moment for your next commercial. But your 4th trivia question of the night is, how many different winners have there been in official races in the entire history of the Karts To Computers Racing Series? So that is not including the All-Star race, which, spoiler alert, the All-Star race is won by somebody who's also won an official race, so that does technically count. But in official series races, how many different drivers have won a race? So your options are 3, 4, or 6. So how many different drivers in our series have won a race all time? I'm talking like both seasons combined, so season 1 and 2. Because I know obviously this season we've had, again, spoiler alert, 2 different winners. But overall, last season, how many do we have in addition to this season? So overall, that is your next trivia question. And then in a moment, when we go to commercial and come back, I will answer the 3rd one, and then we can get on to the last one. And then by the time those are done, we should be at the tail end of this race. And, oh, we quickly lost the server. I guess it was just a connectivity issue on Michael's part, but it is kind of cool to see just exactly how long this straightaway is. This should give you a perfect visual of just how beautiful this track looks on iRacing. Let me just pull everything off the screen for a moment, because there you go. Just a nice visual of exactly what the drivers are looking at here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. And again, if this doesn't give you exactly good of an idea of exactly how tough it would be for the program to try to, you know, process a track this big, this is kind of a perfect showing of that. Oh, sorry, the car volume might be a little bit too loud at the moment. But yeah, I mean, this kind of makes up for the fact that some of the tree textures look a little bit lacking. I mean, they're not the greatest, fanciest looking things there. You see some of them, I think, look almost identical, but the way they were able to model the graffiti is really impressive, and I've actually been looking at it in the background as these guys head around for the start of lap 8. But I've been looking to see if we have any duplicate graffiti on the track, and I don't believe we do, so that's a pretty cool thing to see, and the fact that they actually did model the realistic graffiti there. Actually, there's a great video that I used for some of the footage for our little intro video that I tried to show there. Hopefully you guys were able to see some of it. It took forever to try to get the audio I used to actually function in the video. The link to that is actually down below if you happen to enjoy it. But there's actually a really interesting video about how they modeled this thing, because again, this is a huge task for any driver to try to undertake. Logan Pacza actually went into the pits that last time by. I didn't cover it because I wasn't expecting him to come in this time, but I did mention that earlier. I alluded to the fact that, you know, the earlier you come into pit, the better tires you have for the very last stint of the race. So Michael is going to be on quicker tires this lap. You would expect him to break away from Logan, so it'll be important to note that currently about a 25.5 second gap is the gap from Chrobok to Pacza. So we will see if that gap does extend throughout the rest of this lap. I mean, it should, ideally, if you're Michael, because obviously you're on the better tires than Logan, and the fact that they are older. He's already got about a full second on him since I last checked, but I mean, in an 8-minute track, me making little inferences about small movements in the gap probably isn't the most realistic thing, because in an 8-minute track, you know, half a second here and there, it doesn't really have as much of an effect as a smaller track would, especially at an oval. Speaking of ovals, again, Sunday we go to Michigan for our round 6 in the NASCAR series, our second NASCAR oval of the season. Of course, we started off the season there at Talladega Superspeedway, but Michigan is a slightly smaller oval. You guys are familiar with it if you watched last season's finale. It's a very fun track. It's a fun one to call because it has just a tinge of driver difficulty while still being overall a pretty good race for some pack racing. So we'll see if the famously good at ovals Lead Pedal Blue are able to have success there. In terms of the team standings, I would think Lead Pedal Blue would come away with a pretty good result here, even if Michael isn't able to maintain his current lead when all the pit cycles fan out. But Rich Foligno sitting there in 5th. Logan Ferguson, the other Logan Motorsports teammate. Of course, Logan Motorsports second in the championship right now, as you'll remember from the earlier graphic. Him bowing out of the race in 10th position. I mean, it's only 10 spots, so it won't be a massive blow, because again, our attendance tonight, with some guys being busy, wasn't as big as usual, but that'll kind of hurt them in the team's points a little bit throughout the course of the season. Of course, you do have drop races, so you're never over. It's never over until it's over here in the Karts To Computers Series. That's the way the point system has been designed. Well, we see Logan's actually starting to catch Michael on this lap on new tires, so I guess Logan lit a fire under himself knowing that he's now in 2nd place and he's going to lose the lead for the first time all race. I'm wondering if Michael is going to try to go to the end on an endurance strategy, because I would think with tires, Michael would absolutely be pulling away right now, but he's not. So if we could have a fuel mileage finish once again, it would be, I think it would be probably the most exciting fuel mileage finish we've ever had, except of course our race at Charlotte this year that was one of the most exciting finishes I've ever called. That was with Justin Luke. And speaking of which, I texted him. I don't think I've heard from him yet, so must just be busy tonight. Don't blame him. It is a Friday night. But we will, actually we're going to head to a break, I think, right about now, and maybe we'll head on board with Logan for a little bit. I don't believe we've had an onboard section with him thus far. Meanwhile, Gareth somewhere on the track has crashed very quickly before we head to break. Let's see exactly what did happen to him. He's running off the pace, but I can't see visible damage. Nope, just kind of lost the back end coming up around this right-hand sweeping corner. Again, I don't know corner numbers, because with 73 of them, it's hard to memorize them all. But heads around there, seems to... yeah, seemed to save the car. Got in the dirt a little bit, but he avoided the outside gravel trap and came away without any damage. So Manuel will get back up to speed, and yeah, he appears to be back in good order. So we're going to head on board with Logan Pacza. We're going to head to our 4th trivia question before I answer the 3rd one of tonight's race. And then we are... sorry, wait. No, you'll see the 5th trivia question before I answer the 4th one of the race. I think I forgot a trivia question. I have to answer 2. Okay, we're going to go to break. We'll see if we'll see the 5th trivia question, then we'll get it all figured out. Okay. Well, thank you everybody. Again, apologies for some of the minor technical issues that we had at the beginning, and me trying to make up for them at this point in the race. So thank you everybody for watching once again and taking time out of your Friday nights. And we're gonna head to break, show you the 5th trivia question, then I'll show you the answer to both the 3rd and 4th trivia questions momentarily.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6.
A question right there for those of you that hopefully caught it. Oh, my internet dropped out for a second there. It appears to be all okay, so hopefully, again, the quality on YouTube's end isn't too bad. But the question was, for those of you that didn't catch it, who is the newest driver to the newest current full-time driver in the Karts To Computers Racing Series? Your options were Logan Ferguson, Max Preston, and Andrew Bedrossian, respectively. The answer seems to be almost unanimous in the chat that it is Max Preston. So, well, now that we are almost through with tonight's race, I will give you the proper answers to those in just a moment. Actually, I'll answer the 3rd trivia question right now. So your 3rd question was, in what year was the first race at Nurburgring Nordschleife run? The options were 1927, 1945, or 1968. The correct answer for those of you in the chat was 1927 was the first race ever run at Nurburgring Nordschleife. I don't exactly have info on what race that was. I think for a while that it was just unofficial races that weren't necessarily like a certain series, because again, racing series was a relative term in 1927, of course, but the first automotive race in history was, according to historians, 1927. Of course, your other option, 1945, was the tail end of the Second World War, and of course, Germany probably had different priorities than racing at the Nürburgring Nordschleife back then. But we won't dwell on that too long, and then, oh, Logan heads off the track there to the outside right there, so I think that was probably the first, I guess it was, I would call it a major incident, but that was kind of the first minor off track that I've seen him have this entire time on this on board, so certain parts of the track, of course, can be a little bit trickier than others to keep it on track, but I would suspect that Logan's streak of not having off tracks this race will continue, as with only 2 laps to go, he's going to hit the inside curb a little bit hard, but manages to save it here, so kind of an interesting perspective just to have an onboard here with Logan. Maybe we'll head back to an onboard with Andrew for the time being, just to see how Andrew, who is 10 seconds back at the moment, see how he manages to deal with that tricky section that Logan just went through. Actually may have made it through it already. Logan is not in the background there, up the top of the hill, so apparently a bigger gap than I thought between Andrew and Logan. But yeah, so the other answer was 1968 for the trivia question, and I mean, there were likely races being run there at the Nürburgring Nordschleife at that time, but certainly nowhere near the first. So the correct answer was 1927. I believe both David and Keith got that answer right a moment ago. I'll have to check back in the chat. Yeah, 1927. Mariano Ladisuazos is 1960. Oh, hi everybody, welcome back. I see the Wi-Fi has decided to kick in again, so there we go. My connection is back to okay. Apologies everybody for that, again, quick blip out. Again, I'm a little bit lost as to exactly who said what in terms of the trivia, so I'll have to go back again and check to declare a winner at the end. Back on track, we now have an actual battle. Michael came in for tires this time by and has returned back to the track with his 4-second gap to Logan gone. Logan now has to defend with 2 to go from Michael, and just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we actually have a battle on track. Oh my goodness, it's a commentator's dream. Michael tried to go for a move there and is going to fly to the outside. Managed just to save it, but made hard contact with that outside curve. Almost sent himself over there into the wall, but was able to check it up and save it. Let's actually go to the chase view here on Michael Chrobok to look ahead of him and see in his efforts to make up time to Logan Pacza. Now drops back about a second as a result of that incident. But they entered out of the pits almost identically next to each other. Maybe we're even going to go to a replay and see just how close they were a moment ago. So here's Michael exiting out of the pits into this opening long sweeping first left-hander, and you see Logan just gets out ahead of him there. Michael, of course, had to stay above the commitment line in order to avoid a penalty exiting the pit road. As those of you that remember the Charlotte race, that's exactly why he didn't come away with a podium finish there, is just because he got a pit exit penalty. So he learned his lesson this time, but it allowed Logan to get the position. And now going back live is this long, difficult left-hand banking corner that I've spun at plenty of time. Both drivers seem to make it through okay. So, well, Michael now with 2 laps to go. His target is in sight. Fuel is no longer a worry for these 2 drivers, and we can now focus entirely on declaring a race winner here. Michael, of course, as you remember, was starting to catch up lap by lap there in probably the middle of the race around lap 4 or 5. But when it came down to lap timing, of course, Michael, I think, ran about a half-second quicker 2 or 3 laps in a row. So we'll now see if Michael is able to keep that pace up. Of course, Logan is on older tires, so he would inherently have a grip advantage, which I'd imagine would factor in slightly, but corners like this probably won't matter too much as they start to get back up to speed. It's more so the longer sweeping corners in which the back end comes around a little bit more easily on newer tires that you need to worry. Looking elsewhere on the track, it looks like Marshall Crocker on the track map is the next driver that would go a lap down here. John apparently appeared to pass him at some point throughout the course of the lap. I guess whether he had an incident or whether he came in for an extra pit stop, I guess I just missed it there. So everybody should be on the same number of pit stops. I'll just quickly show that before I get the answer to your 4th trivia question for you. But let's see how many stops everybody has. So Manuel is only running on 1. I'm amazed that he's able to avoid pitting for a second one. I guess he'd be on lap 8 right now, so he'll probably come in at the end of this lap. But everybody else appears to have several. Marshall Crocker has 4. So interesting to see that he's had to come in that many times. Speaking of the gap between the top 2 drivers, Logan has broken away by about a half-second since we came to this view. But yeah, wow. Oh, he's in the pits now. He came off the track momentarily. We're going to have to see what happened to him there. He's in the pits as we speak with massive damage to his front left tire. We're going to go to the replay and see exactly what happened. But right as I started to mention it, he came off track. So he's already got massive damage here. What exactly happened to him? We got to go way back to see what happened to Marshall Crocker Sr. He was driving an impressive number of corners there without a front left wheel. Still doesn't have one. So there's John in the back. I guess John passed him while he had the damage. Yeah, there you go, the lap. So he went almost the full way around the track without a wheel. You see he just loses the back end coming into this kind of 3-part little mini chicane there. Has all 4 tires at this point. I don't know when he loses it. I guess it was going down and then he just completely lost it at some point during the lap, but wow, the longest replay I've ever shown. But wow, props to my dad for making it all the way around there. I know we'll have towing time to deal with, but impressive work there by Marshall Crocker Sr. Round of applause for making it that far around the track without a wheel. But, sorry, checking the chat, neither of them have taken tires this race. That's important to note because I would have thought, even though, of course, you can go quite a long time on tires in the Skip Barber cars, hence why they are so brutal for grip, is because they're more focused on conservation rather than speed. But I would have thought they would have had to pit for tires at least one point in this race. I mean, you talk about a 22-kilometer track, 10 laps, 220 kilometers. You'd think you'd have to pit for a set of racing tires in that time, but it would appear not. So we're going to keep on this this nice view here that shows Michael in the background every little once in a while. We're going to get to our 4th trivia question. So I will give everybody one final opportunity for those of you that did not answer it the first time. I have to pull it up to remember exactly what it was. But your 4th trivia question was, how many different drivers have won an official race in the Karts To Computers Racing Series? So I'll give everybody maybe one more minute to get their final answer in, and then I will tell you the answer to that. Remember, your options are 3, 4, or 6. And that is official races, of course. That doesn't include our All-Star race last season, but again, The All-Star race was won by somebody who's also won official races before, so I will reveal to you who those drivers were and how many there were in just a moment. Let's see if any more want to throw in a guess there. I have a text. It is not from Justin Loic. It's from my dad, so we will have to check in a moment what that is about. But it looks like, unfortunately, no Justin Loic in the broadcast booth tonight. It's a shame, because if he wasn't able to make it to the race, that would have been the perfect scenario here. But hopefully he's able to make it back out on Sunday for a race at Michigan, which I'll talk a little bit more about post-race. But I'm thinking for the race recap, ladies and gentlemen, I won't quite have time to show it throughout the course of the race, but I will post it on the series Facebook, kind of posthumously, after the broadcast. So those of you, I'm not sure if you guys have been following the Facebook, but it's linked down in the description on the broadcast, which I've actually been starting to update the last 2 races. But you check the description, you can see all the music I use for the broadcast, whether it be the background music I use for like transitions and stuff, or the intro song that I use in the real intro, or the intro song that I used in the little compilation I did for Nurburgring at the start there. Again, hopefully you guys were able to catch some of that, because it took painfully long to put together. And then our outro song, all of those are, they're all open source, so they're all like YouTube royalty-free stuff. But if you want to check out the links to them, those are in the description. And then you can see the link there in the description for the @KTC Racing Series on Facebook. I've been posting updates about the race starting times and putting together little post-race results, so showing all the updated standings as soon as I get them, and posting about the winners for each race. I guess I've only done it for 1 race so far, but I posted about Logan winning at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park last week, so check all that stuff out on Facebook, again, @KTC Racing Series, and then I will be sure to post the race recap there when I get the chance after the race. But now that everybody, I hope, has locked in their answers for the 4th trivia question, which is, how many drivers have won an official race in the Karts To Computers Racing Series? Right as the drivers are about to head on to the final lap of the race once they finish off this very, very long straightaway. Your answers were 3, 4, or 6, and the correct answer to that question was 4. 4 different drivers have won an official race in the Karts To Computers Racing Series. Those drivers are, of course, the 2 drivers to win this year, the top 2 in the championship, and the top 2 in tonight's race. Logan Pacza, who I believe has 8 or 9 all-time. Michael Chrobok, who has 4 all-time, all of which coming at ovals. We actually see Logan heading around the final 2 corners here, second to last. And now the final corner here as we head on to the white flag lap. Final lap, lap 10 at the Nurburgring Nordschleife here. So only 8 more minutes to go to declare a winner. Logan runs the fastest lap of the race. Is that an 8:11? No, that's an 8:13. I'm just blind. So an 8:13.903, not a bad time at all for Logan. And then Michael, of course, running in the 8:30s, but it was a pit-in lap, so makes sense there. So Michael's starting to drop back a little bit, but he's got 1 more lap to go. Oh, and we're coming back. And we're coming back. And we're back. Okay. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for dealing through those little dropouts in terms of internet connection. While you were gone, really not much has happened. Logan broke away about another 0.2 of a second in the first sector of this lap. Besides that, Marshall Crocker Sr., my father, just came out of the pits, so he will rejoin the track in 8th. A little bit too far back of John Guerra, I think, to pass for position. But actually, I think it'll be a perfect opportunity to throw up your race recap. Nah, I was going to say, well, we wait for drivers to finish after the last lap, because of course it is an 8-minute track and guys need to finish laps, but no, I'll just post it on the Facebook. So if you guys want to see all the race recaps, I do them in advance. So if you want the race recap of all the action there, feel free to go check that out. But, so yeah, the answer to the trivia question was the 4 drivers being, and I'll go through them now. So Logan Pacza and Michael Chrobok, your top 2 in this race and in the series, and the only 2 guys to win a race this season. And then after that, it was Josh Gallagher, who won the very first ever Karts To Computers Racing Series race at Talladega last year, which I just want to speak on this quickly. I'm not sure who is going back to watch that broadcast, but that broadcast has almost like 500 views on YouTube now, and every day I get like 6 more, and I'm not sure exactly why YouTube is recommending that race to so many people. I didn't think it was particularly one of my best put together broadcasts, but apparently it was exciting enough that people still go back to watch it every once in a while. So the fact that that is our All-Star race this year is that exact same race, Indy Cars at Indy, including one in which I will be racing in it. Those of you that remember our Charlotte race last year, where it was kind of a makeshift live stream posted to my personal channel. This year we will actually make it more of an official live stream, and it'll be posted to this channel, so stay tuned for that. And again, you'll be on board with me as we tackle the Indy 500 together. I guess the Indy 250, because we're only doing 100 laps, but that'll be our All-Star race, and the winner of that race will get to decide the we'll get to decide both the track and car for the final race of our season. The date for that will be to be announced because it was supposed to be, I think, July the 10th. But that will be postponed just because of personal things that that are going on in my life. So, of course, unfortunately, I'm going to have to move the series back a week there, but no problem whatsoever for that. And then we will have your live stream for that all ready to go. So I'm looking forward to that All-Star race. But we now need to answer your final trivia question of the day. And again, I have to go back through the chat. So we may need to go on board with somebody for a little bit until I can put up the graphic to say exactly who won the trivia tonight. But the answer to your final trivia question, which was, and I have to go check my images again just to see exactly what question that was. Who is the newest current driver in the Karts To Computers Racing Series? Yeah, your options were Logan Ferguson, Max Preston, and Andrew Bedrossian. And the correct answer to that question was, I believe everybody got it, but Mr. Max Preston is the newest driver in our racing series. Andrew Bedrossian was close. I don't blame you if you answered him because he has run, I believe, this will be his 6th race in series history. He did run the final race of last season, though. He did run at our first Michigan race in the NASCAR Xfinity to end off last season. And now he has run in every race this season. But as a result, Max is the newest driver because he has only run this season. He's made it out to every race, but he did not run a single race in our series last season. And then Logan Ferguson, of course, has been here since, I think, race 4 of last season. So yeah, the correct answer is Max Preston. Everybody feel free to honestly put down in the chat who, based on their math, has won. I think... Let me guess. I think it was Keith Forcier, but I'm not positive. So feel free if you guys want to tally that up and go back and see exactly who answered the most correct questions. So we come into the final half of your final lap here. I'm going to head back to the end of the race here because it looks like we could have a battle any lap now that Michael's kind of got on the gas pedal and started to make up ground to Logan. But very quickly, so remember your correct answers were respectively in order. So 73 corners was the correct answer to the first question. 1927 was the correct, no, 1,000 feet roughly was the answer to the second question regarding the highest and lowest elevation on the track. 1927 was the correct answer for question 3. 4 drivers was the correct answer for question 4, and Max Preston was the correct answer to question 5. So whoever got the most out of those 5 will have their names put up in the graphic at the end of the broadcast. Again, thank you everybody for doing the trivia. I knew tonight was going to be a race with a lot of guys driving on their own and me just waiting for things to happen. So I figured I'd do that for once with you guys and hopefully add a nice little touch added to the broadcast. So if you guys want that to happen in the future for races similar to this one, just let me know in the comments if you've enjoyed it. And again, if you guys want to tally up who won that one, I'll check in a moment to make it officially. But I think it's Keith Forcier is the correct answer. So I know a few people came close. I think Mariana Latasuazo got every single answer right. So props to her on that one. But let me just get back into the racing action here. Now only a second gap between the top 2, so less than half a lap to go. Let's head out of the trivia mode and head into racing mode here. So back to the play-by-play, which I haven't really gotten a chance to do all broadcast, but Logan Pacza, you see coming through the one of the final right-hand corners here as he heads back towards that final backstretch. If Michael can get in his range of a slipstream in that final backstretch, he is back in business. And really, if he can get, I would say within about a half a second, or maybe even 8/10, like somewhere in that ballpark, through these final tricky few corners here. We're going to head on board with Michael Chrobok once again, just to see exactly how close he can get to Logan Pacza. We're going to throw up the battle box too. Going to get all of our graphics out for this one because this is going to be a good final battle. I have the feeling coming within about 8/10. I just talked about it. He got a great entry through that corner. So up ahead, we got the lap card. I think that's John Guerra in the Diabolic Motorsports entry in the yellow there. Hopefully he doesn't put an end to this race for one of these drivers. Michael goes a little bit too wide there. He's losing ground massively as a result of that incident. Logan washed out a little bit, but Michael washed out even further. He's back up to speed, but I'm not sure if that's going to put the end of this race. Both drivers have to go wide to avoid John. Actually, that's perfect placement there to avoid an incident there. So both drivers are onto the backstretch, but about a second and a 10th back is Michael Chrobok. Is he too far back to get the slipstream? I don't think so. Watch the timing tower there, ladies and gentlemen. If that number keeps going down, it means he's in the slipstream, and the closer he gets, the harder that slipstream will go. Look at the track map. Look at how long the straightaway is. He's got plenty of room to work with. He's getting about a 1/10 a second. This is going to be a great finish. We've had, I think, 2 consecutive great finishes to races in a row, and I think we're about to have a third one. Michael's still in the slipstream. You got to wonder what he's thinking right now. I'd love to be in his head and be talking to him on the broadcast live, but he is getting closer and closer like a shark coming up to its prey. Now about 4/10 back. His slipstream is going to work. Will Logan try to block? We're coming into the end of the straightaway. Only 3 corners to go when they come up this hill. Almost side by side. Is he going to throw it to the inside? The outside. He's going to go right behind. He's got room on the inside. He's going to throw it to the inside. They make contact. Both drivers go around into the outside wall. Where is Logan Pacza? Pacza trying to get back up to speed. Where are they on track now? He hits John Guerra. Both drivers are up to speed. Michael Chrobok gets going again. Michael has a few corners to go and he would win the whole race. Comes through the final corner with a damaged race car. Not sure if his penalty points are going to kick in, but Michael Chrobok wins his first road course race in the Karts To Computers Racing Series. Logan comes in just behind in arguably somewhat controversial in fashion, but wow, what a finish we had there. Again, I've often talked about at other points throughout this series how Michael and Pacza in all of their races together, they've never gotten together in an incident. And I get like the situation with the corners they were going through here, they didn't have much choice, but let's just watch this battle play out. So here you see Logan Pacza up ahead. Michael had the huge slipstream coming up the hill. He kind of had nowhere to go. He tried to throw it to the outside here, and as he tries to get to the inside, Logan wasn't anticipating him to make the move, and they get together. Michael makes huge contact with the start of that kind of cushioned barrier there, the red and white barrier up top. Michael gets back up to speed first, and then John spins in an attempt to avoid. I think Logan managed to avoid them, but Michael gets back up to speed a little bit earlier, and in a race that is a total of 8 minutes long, Michael won by, I think, maybe 2 or 3 seconds. What a finish. Again, it wasn't an entirely clean fashion, but I wouldn't necessarily consider that a fault of Michael's. He had the move, and he had the momentum, so what a finish. Wow, that was something. Well, first of all, congratulations to Michael. That was his first road course win in series history. I mean, we talked about 2 weeks ago. Logan got his first oval win, and now Michael's got his first road course win. So I'm sure he's going to be thrilled to talk about that one. There's going to be a lot to talk about that finish, because that was something. Maybe we'll go to one more view before we head off to your interviews in a moment. But I want to see that one more time, because that was. Again, that was one of the better finishes I've seen in all of iRacing, and I get it wasn't the cleanest necessarily, but I mean, again, I wouldn't consider that a fault of either driver. That was just kind of it was a racing move that was not quite perceived by Logan when he went underneath. Yeah, I would argue where he was on track, I think that he left the door open enough that I'm not going to question that. I think with how hard a slipstream was, first of all, I was amazed that he was close enough. I was saying that he was going to need about 8/10 of a gap at most in order to be able to make up the time to him on the straightaway. That is, in order to be close enough to get the slipstream. But apparently the gap he had was close enough, and he got up to speed super quickly. Actually, I want to see what John Guerra was going through coming up to him there. I think he will end the race with one less lap than those in front of him. But let's just check on board with John Guerra. So let's watch what he was seeing. So he sees up there both the leaders making the contact there. I think he just barely hits John Guerra. I'm wondering if John wasn't there, which again, no fault of John's. I mean, he saw 2 drivers spinning up ahead, tried to check up in a chicane. Hard to deal with, but would Logan have gotten up to speed first if he hadn't made contact with John? That's the question. And we can, you know, what's the word? I'm lost for words today. We can theorize all we want about who would have won had that not happened, but at the end of the day, your race winner is Michael Chrobok. They're going to park on the finish line next to each other, no doubt trying to, if this was real life, Michael would be signaling out, trying to apologize for that happening. But again, I'm not going to put that on any particular driver, because that's just the nature of racing sometimes. And I'm not somebody who wants to excuse everything as just typical racing. I know that sometimes in the IndyCar broadcast, I like to do that. Paul Tracy does it a lot, and it drives me bonkers, but that, you know what, that was a clean incident. If it were me, I wouldn't have assigned penalties if I were a race director, or hey, a race marshal, only fitting. But looking around the track elsewhere, only 2 drivers left on track as Jordan West finishes the race in 3rd position. Andrew Bedrossian coming across the line in 3rd, I should also mention. But Rich Foligno currently in 5th position, and I believe he's got virtually no competition for that 5th spot. He's heading through the grass every once in a while. He might still have a little bit of leftover damage from earlier incidents, but he should come across with a top 5 finish for Lead Pedal Motorsports, which means that, we have lost the race feed, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that. That is not a internet problem. That is me completely unplugging my monitor. And back up we go. Should be good. And, that is my screensaver. That's from a video game called Fire Emblem Three Houses, everybody, in case you're wondering. Now it's trying to display on my computer. So let me just switch it back over. Again, kind of been playing catch up the entire broadcast now that we've, as a result of the technical difficulties that made the broadcast start late. Hey, there we go. And we're back. Just pretend you didn't see any of that. There we go. So Rich Foligno is will remain in 5th position. He's going to win by a pretty, or sorry, he's going to keep the 5th position by a pretty solid margin. You see on the track map there, Manuel Guerra heading through the, again, I still don't know what it's called. I think it's something carousel, but I don't exactly know the name. So the final 2 drivers left on track. We'll just go and watch Rich as he finishes it off here. I'm going to check the chat. Do you guys have any guess of the final, which character are you in the screensaver? Ooh, that's a solid question. Okay. We can go through video game talk very quickly while we wait for Rich to finish. In the game, you don't technically play as one of the 3 characters. They represent houses, kind of like Harry Potter. So the 3 characters, there's a red, yellow, and a blue. And I know they pop up in the background every time I mess up my screensaver and I accidentally show it. Rich is going to finish the race in the pits. But in the game, you play as one of the 3 houses, hence why it's called Fire Emblem 3 Houses is the game name. And I've played it from the perspective of all of them. I have like over 200 hours logged in this game. It's like a single player thing, so you just kind of play it on your own time, like a story. But personally, I think in my own time playing, I've personally enjoyed the yellow house. Actually, well, I don't want to pull back to my screensaver. But the yellow guy, his name is Claude. So that is the house I most, I think, associate with. They're not like Harry Potter where they have specific traits and the whole sorting thing. Never would I have thought we'd be talking about Harry Potter in one of these broadcasts, but there you go. So the correct answer is yellow guy. His name's Claude, but that's probably not a very helpful answer for those of you that haven't played it. But I like people trying to tell me the exact word I was thinking of. Thank you. Marshall, use this finish as a trivia question. Oh gosh. We could say what color was the barrier Michael hit there at the end, but that's all racing barriers are the same color, same as the curbs, always red and white. So, let me just check finally. I think Keith Forcier is the winner. I'm pretty sure. Virtually positive. Oh, and now that Rich Foligno is finished, we can head to Manuel Guerra as the final driver of the race. We'll chill on board with him for a little bit. There we go. He's getting ready to finish the race. But let me just check. So I think, question 1, we'll do a full recap here for all the questions. So question 1, I don't think anybody got right. Nobody said 72, which was the correct answer. Question 2 was the elevation answer. So both David and Keith had 1,000, which was the correct answer. Question 3, the correct answer was 1927. Both just Keith and Logan got it right. So Keith went up 2 to 1 there on David. Then question 4, the correct answer was, now I'm forgetting, 4 drivers have won races in the Karts To Computers Racing Series. Both Mariana and David said 4, as well as Heather, so all 3 of you were right. Keith got that one wrong, so it was 2 to 2. And then the final answer was Max Preston, which means that we do have a tie between Keith and David. Now, spoiler alert, I only have 1 spot on the graphic. So if we want to ask one more tiebreaker question for Keith and David to declare a winner, yeah, white and red is the correct answer. So, gosh. Oh, what's a good one to ask? We'll say first person to put it in the YouTube chat is the winner. Let's think of a good one as we watch Manuel finish off the final lap of the race. What's a good... Oh, okay. I have one. Okay, what track, and I'm not talking about configuration, but what racing track have we run at the most times in the Karts To Computers Racing Series? That is your question. First person to put the correct answer in the chat is the winner. Hey, Michael's in the chat as well. How's it going, Michael? For those of you wondering, or for Michael, if you're wondering, we're doing kind of series trivia here. So, congrats, Michael, on your finish, man. Congrats on your win there in the road course. We're going to go to the interview in a few minutes. We just got to finish up the last few laps of the race because we're waiting for Manuel to finish. I can't show the final results until he does, and now Manuel has finally finished. So, just waiting to see the correct answer to the final question. Remember, the correct answer, or the question we're asking for is what track, what facility have we run the most races at, regardless of configuration in the series. I will say, you guys have put Michigan and Talladega. Neither of those are correct, so I'm just going to wait until we get the right answer. If you want a hint, we have run at the track 3 times in the history of the series. The configuration has been different twice. So feel free to put that in there. Well, we go through your final race results. Let me just take off all my graphics here. And, well, this has been kind of a fun, different sort of broadcast here. Again, I talk about how I knew coming into this it wasn't going to be an easy one to try to broadcast all of, but I like to think it was a pretty fun time. And, again, the finish was great. Like, the last 20 seconds, if we could have an entire race of that, that would be probably the best broadcast not only I've ever done, but I've ever watched in this on this simulator. So, your final results for tonight's race. Michael Chrobok comes away with the race win here. I know he's in the race chat, but in the YouTube chat, but congratulations to Mr. Chrobok there. He has now won 5 career races in the Karts To Computers Racing Series. So congrats to that too, Michael. 5 official race wins in our series. Now, the second driver to ever do so, of course, the other being Logan Pacza. But that is his first official road course race win. So he did it. I talked about it earlier in the broadcast, but if there was ever a race to prove your ability at road courses through a win, it was here tonight at Nurburgring Nordschleife. And then after that, Logan Pacza, you saw in that finish there at the very end. I'll probably repost that to YouTube because that was so much fun to watch. But Logan Pacza coming away with the second position, sitting only 2.8 seconds back in the final, because of course, you know, it was just a battle of 2 guys to get back up to speed after that incident in the final few corners. Andrew Bedrossian almost a full minute back in third position, but again, that doesn't kind of tell the whole story because it's a track as large as Nurburgring Nordschleife, a whole minute is the equivalent of like 3 seconds in any other race. So congrats to Andrew coming away with I think that's his 5th podium of the season, his 4th third place. Andrew was just the master of third. I'll have to talk to him about that in the interview, but when it comes to third place, it's his element. It's where Andrew appears to thrive. So Andrew comes away with the 3rd position there. Then after that, Jordan West, Rich Foligno rounding out your top 5. Jordan West, of course, finishing in the 4th position. I think ties his best finished all season. So congratulations to him for that. Back in the chat, I just want to quickly check if we've had the correct answer yet. No, it's not Daytona. So if you guys can keep going, in the winner I can put in the final graphic for the series or for the broadcast tonight. So it's not Daytona, it's not Talladega, and it's not Michigan. If you want a hint, the actual racetrack is a mile and a half long. So there's your final hint. But back to the final standings. After that, Manuel Guerra finishing in the 6th spot. I think this is his best finish in series history, not just this season. So congrats to Manuel. Great work tonight. Staying on the lead lap too, which is more than impressive here at Nürburgring. After that, John Guerra, his brother and Diabolique Motorsports teammate, coming across the line in 7th. Both drivers finishing in the top 7. Good work tonight for Diabolique Motorsports. That'll certainly help him in the standings. After that, Marshall Crocker Sr. will come away with a 8th place position, the only other driver who was only a single lap down. And then after that, 9th and 10th is Devin Crosby and Logan Ferguson, the only 2 drivers of the race who bowed out earlier. Again, not quite sure why, but I think it might have just been a case of either penalty points or out of quick repairs, or, well, not out of quick repairs, we had unlimited. But overall, I'm not going to speculate too long because I'm honestly not sure. But well, that is your final 10 for tonight's race. Of course, Max Preston, I don't believe, is able to start the race, but I think he technically... No, he wouldn't get series points for not starting. I was going to say, we used to have that, but now we manually do our point system, so that will not count. It is an oval. There's the correct answer. So David Paxley gets the correct answer there. It is Charlotte Motor Speedway. Remember, we ran Charlotte last season for the All-Star race. We ran the Roval in Season 1, and now we ran the official race at Charlotte Motor Speedway for round 3 of this season. So Charlotte is the correct answer. But quickly, we were just going to go to commercial one more time before we go to our interviews, now that our final race results are done. So we're going to go to one more commercial. This is not going to be a side-by-side, just going to be a pure commercial. And let me just get all my broadcast graphics figured out, because I have a few special graphics for tonight's interviews. So I'm going to go to a quick commercial, and then we'll be back for the interviews for round 5 of the 2020 Karts To Computers Racing Series, Season 2.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
we're back with round 5 of the 2020 Karts To Computers Racing Series, Season 2. I've got all my graphics finally set up. Had to throw a few names in there for each driver, but we are now ready to do your interview in just a moment. Currently, we only have Andrew Bedrossian and Michael Chrobok in the booth, but I know Logan is he's always around for interviews, so hopefully he's back for the second place interview tonight. But for the time being, let me just throw to your third place interview graphic, and we'll get ready to interview your third place finisher tonight, Mr. Andrew Bedrossian. Oh, background music's on a little bit loud there. Oh, sorry, let me just, I need to add in, oh, sorry, it should be all good now. Okay, well, we're getting ready for our interview here with Mr. Andrew Bedrossian for his third place finish tonight. Let me just grab him in the booth. Oh, hey Andrew, it's Marshall in the booth. Can you hear me?
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, sorry, I just got to set something up here in the broadcast side, and then we're all good to go.
Okay.
There we go, sir. Do you want to talk one more time for me?
Sure.
Hey, there we go. We're all ready. So, well, first of all, Andrew, congratulations. This is your 5th podium of the season. You've got quite the streak going there. I think this is your 4th third place you've had all season. And
yeah,
I know you were the first guy to show up for practice tonight. It looked like you were getting some pretty good lap times in there. I know it's... sorry, I should ask because I'm not quite positive. How much experience do you have running at the Nurburgring Nordschleife, and how many laps have you logged in there before preparing for tonight's race?
Probably only about 2 or 3 laps tonight. I got probably 7 laps of practice in, and that's it. First practice this week, so yeah, it came out pretty good.
Yeah, it most certainly did. We talk about tonight's race. This is one that both on the Facebook and to all the drivers before the race started. I've been hyping this one up for a little while because Nürburgring, when we talked about it last season, but it just felt like at the start of a new series, it was a little bit too difficult to run with some of the guys we had just joining for the first time. But now that we've had a few more races under our belt, I figured I'd add it to the schedule and come here, knowing it would be difficult. And do you just kind of want to talk about the format, the idea that it wasn't so much about racing the drivers around you, it was more so about survival, and just kind of talk about the mindset here at Nürburgring compared to any other race in our series?
So basically at Nürburgring, it's a lot of twists, turns, elevation changes, especially with the Skip Barber car having very little downforce sliding the car. The more you ran the car, the better it got with the tires, with getting heat into them. I was lucky enough to start out at second, so I didn't really have to push my way through anybody. I know Logan was going to take off from the start, didn't want to really put up a fight, and just stay in line, especially on cold tires. Michael and I changed spots a tiny bit, but I just let him go. My spotter was just telling me, let him go. It's better to stay out of the wall and not fight your teammate. But yeah, we had a pretty good overall race with the car. Really nobody to contend with me. Got kind of lonely and boring for a while, so...
Yeah, well, I guess this is the nature of racing at a track like Nürburgring. And again, you talk about your spotter there telling you to just let guys by and avoid incidents at all costs. We found it at the end of the race in the battle between Michael and Logan when they made contact in the third to last corner of the track, and it was the first guy to get out of a crash that was able to win the race, in this case being Michael. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to a track as difficult as this one, I'd imagine that is the proper strategy. And talking about the track itself, I mean, it's obviously a lot of the difficulty comes from it being one that's really hard to memorize with so many corners, 73 officially, as we learned in the broadcast. But the kind of the design of the track overall, do you want to talk about how it compares to any other road course we've done in terms of like elevation or the style of the corners or things like that?
Yeah, like, I mean, it's a very, very long track. It's very hard to memorize and keep up that consistency with learning how fast you can really push your car. I mean, I was keeping a pretty consistent pace with my car. I mean, I
Sorry, we're back there. I'm not sure if we had a quick internet drop out on my end. Sorry, Andrew. Sorry, did your chat drop out there, Andrew? I can't even hear him anymore. Sorry, Andrew, can you hear me in the booth? Well, it appears we've lost Andrew. I'm not sure if you guys can all hear me at home. I hope so. I'm gonna... Huh. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna pull down the race entirely. I'm just gonna drop out of the session, I think, and then we will... Okay, I'll keep it up in the background. Hopefully, can everybody hear me at home? They just throw it in the chat. I know we dropped out there for a minute, but if everybody can hear me. Okay, you guys can all hear me on the broadcast. Okay, I guess I just lost Andrew there. I had a quick drop out of my internet. I'll try to take him out of the chat and put him back in. Hey Andrew, sorry, we're having some technical problems. Can you hear me? Huh. Let me try it one more time. Discord may have the software we use for the interviews may have dropped out for a moment. So let me just try one more thing, and then if that doesn't work, we may need to head on to your second interview. Sorry. Sorry. Hey Andrew, it's Marshall in the booth. Can you hear me? No, doesn't appear so. So, unfortunately, as a result of the quick internet dropout we had there, I think we on my screen we should be back up to proper speed. So okay, so he's dropped out to the booth there. Maybe we'll hear him in a second. I guess as a result of that, we can head on to your second place interview for the time being. Let's just head to your second place interview with second place finisher tonight, Logan Pacza. Hey Logan, can you hear me? Sorry, Logan, can you hear me in the booth there? Okay, I think we're back up to speed here. Sorry, I'm just doing everything in my power to try to get the Wi-Fi rebooted. I'm thinking it's not just a Wi-Fi issue like I think it is, but I'm not quite sure. Sorry, Logan, I'm going to try one more time. Logan, can you hear me in the booth? No, I can't.
Yes, I can hear Marshall, Mom.
Oh, sorry, you can hear me now? Because okay, I can hear Logan now, so it's an improvement. Sorry, Logan, can you hear me? Hey, Logan, it's Marshall in the booth. You got me? Hey, Logan, it's Marshall. Can you hear me? Huh, this is... Huh, for a split second there I could hear you, and then it dropped out again. Sorry, Logan, you want to try one more time there? Sorry, so to clarify, sorry we're going through these issues. Everybody in the chat, you guys can all hear me. You can hear my mic, right? Because it's showing that I'm showing up, and okay, I think Logan's mic is stuck on a weird setting on my end. I just can't. It's just not coming across. It was there for a second, but it appears to not be at the moment. So, he's dropped out of the booth for the time being. So we can try an interview with your race winner, Michael Chrobok, and see if we can get that to work. And I feel bad that we weren't able to get all of Andrew's interview. Sorry, Logan, can you you're back in the booth. Can you talk again? No, I just I don't know if the broadcast can hear you, but I can't. Huh.
Well,
Oh, okay, I can hear you now.
you can hear me?
I can. Yep.
All right, cool.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, okay, the broadcast is back up to speed. Okay, thank you for the wait, ladies and gentlemen. I had to turn my fan up super high, and now my laptop's back up to speed, so hopefully everything is okay. And then we can get our interview started now. I know Michael's in the booth too, so there you go. Maybe we can do a 2-for-1 interview because I think Andrew's already dropped out. So, sorry, can I just get a quick mic check from both of you guys to make sure I can get you on the broadcast?
I got you, Marshall.
Me too.
Okay, awesome. So we'll try it this way. I made 2 separate graphics for each of you, but we'll see if we can get this to work. So, well, first of all, congratulations to both of you guys. I think it's only fitting that we do both of you on the interview because with a margin of 2.8 seconds at Nurburgring, that is not bad at all. I mean, the finish, first of all, just kind of one by one, maybe you guys can walk me through that. It was chaotic for sure. I was talking about the entire straightaway down. I thought Michael was a little bit too far back to get the slipstream, and then he got in it, and it was just a question of how is he going to get by. And I know he tried to commit to a move with the run he had underneath, and maybe I'll throw to you, Logan, first. What was your strategy trying to defend after the final backstretch and just a few more corners to go to the finish?
Well, so I knew that I would only have to defend for 2 corners, right? Because when you're so high speed through those first 3 corners of the final like section, you like it's not really worth the risk to try and get past someone because usually you can't create enough momentum unless you have a really good run to like completely get past someone on the outside or the inside. So I was just trying to hit my marks for there, try not to like accidentally hit curbs. That would give Michael a bit more of a run than what he already had. And then I tried defending into the first like tight corner, and I think that it was just a chain reaction of him coming out a little bit and me coming in a little bit, right? Because I was trying to set up a little bit, and I think that the way I looked at the replay afterwards, and it seemed like the way that Michael's cart was positioned when he started braking, it kind of caused him to try and turn in. And then when he turned out, the back end came out just enough to hit my tire. And then after that, there was really no like saving it. I noticed like it came like with all the incidents in the race, I found that the smallest of touches created like massive effects. I think that like I just watched the replay now, and Devin like got flipped by a tiny like side by side touch with I think your dad.
Yeah, absolutely. The collision tonight was insane. I don't know if they maybe Michael, you can elaborate because you probably know more about the iRacing updates than I do. But yeah, it felt like every time anybody would make the smallest touch, even with a curb or something, the physics were just flipping everybody around. Like Devin went almost completely over a barrier with the smallest side by side touch to my dad. So I guess it's just something about the skip arbor cars that results in it. But yeah, it looked like the move that Michael made. I thought, Michael, you were going to clear him clean when he got underneath, and of course it just became a case of you two trying to get back up to speed first. And Michael, you were able to get around. I know Logan, you had the smallest touch with John Guerra there as he attempted to avoid, which I think might have if that hadn't happened, you may have even come away with the win here. But well, overall, I'm trying to think of a question because like overall it was a long. It was a long process, and then at the end there we had the battle. But Michael, I'll ask you the same thing. Like, what was going through your head there with the final battle?
Yeah, it was just a crazy race overall. Just to try to stay within reach of Logan the whole race. Like he ran a flawless race, like he always does. And so I wanted to stay within a few seconds, and maybe we could, be in position there at the pit stop. And we came out of the pits like side by side going into turn 1, and that was crazy. And at the end there, I thought it was too far back. We went through the mini carousel, which is a second carousel there, and I made a little bit of a mistake, and I ran wide, and I got in the grass, and I had to check up a little bit, and I fell back, and I thought that was it. But that slipstream on that straightaway was just crazy, and I had never had a slipstream at Nurburgring that intense in practice or anything like that before. So I misjudged my braking point a little bit there. I drifted out a little bit. I think Logan came out a little bit just to make the corner like he should, and we just unfortunately came together because the skip arbor physics are a little wonky. I know in practice I got a wheel in the wall and it flipped the whole car 50 feet in the air. So you never know what's going to happen with the physics here. And once we touched, it was just a matter of, okay, let's just try to back this thing up and get across the line. And whoever backed it up first got it. And I hate the race ended that way. I would have loved to go wheel to wheel through the final set of corners. Honestly, I didn't think I had a shot at all. Logan was just perfect all race, and but the slipstream in this car is just wild, and got a huge toe there, made up the second, and chaos last couple of corners. But for Nurburgring, I think it was pretty tame overall.
Yeah, for sure. I would by no means consider it like a chaotic race, certainly not comparative to even Canadian Tire last week. Yeah, so in the end, I'm going to throw back to Logan there. But Logan, besides the finish, overall throughout the course of the race, I mean, 10 laps at a race that is where each lap is 8 laps long. Or sorry, 8 minutes long, I should say. But kind of just walk us through the mental side, like because obviously not knowing really not having each corner memorized, or at least I would assume not, unless you have magical, insane abilities that allow you to memorize all 154 or how many corners. But just mentally, like what do you go through trying to avoid boredom that I know Andrew quickly mentioned in his interview, and that kind of thing? Like what goes through your head mentally throughout the course of those 80 minutes?
So it's a very hard thing to explain the mental. I guess the mindset that I tried to put myself in for this race, where trying to stay alert, as in like trying to focus on little things that are going on, it allows you to always keep in focus what's right in front of you. If you try at your best to try and concentrate on every little thing that's going on around you, you always stay in focus of what you're doing. Another thing was just trying your best not to make mistakes, thinking about the corner before you go into it. I know that some people, they might like charge blind into a corner and they'll miss their braking point, go straight into the wall, and that'll be their race. And I tried my best to think about the corner before I went into it. And I think that helped a lot with not making mistakes.
Well, it clearly seemed to. I mean, both you and Michael had virtually flawless races. I know a few times there in the last lap, Michael, in your attempt to chase, I know you headed off a little bit onto the grass, but you were able to save it and make the corners that you needed to get close enough in that final the final slipstream run down the straightaway there to make the move for the win. Just kind of talking generally. I'm trying to think of what else to go over. I mean, thinking about the track design itself. I mean, we've talked about obviously about the distance and the duration of each lap and the memorization of each corner. But talking about the track as a whole, do you just kind of want to talk about the elevation changes in the track design? Like, how does it compare to maybe Watkins earlier this season or Canadian Tire last week?
Oh, I think this is hands down the most fun racetrack I've ever driven in my life. I was terrible when I came here a week ago to start practicing. I was running like laps in the 50s, maybe 9 minutes, and we got it down to optimal was around 8:12 at the end. So we gained some time there. The elevation changes are wild. The blind corners. There's a little kink on one of the first long straightaways there that is really really challenging. It looks like you can take it flat out, but on cold tires, it's just it really upsets the rear end of the car. But there's a lot of rhythm to the track. There's a nice technical section that you really got to hit every apex right, and it has a great rhythm. I love there's a right-hander kind of through the forest where you're in third gear coming down, and then you do a little short straightaway, and then another right-hander up. That's a great corner. It's a lot of fun. So there's just so many things to test a driver here. To find speed between blind corners you can take flat out. Ones that you got to get the gearing right because you're going uphill and you got to maximize your momentum. So there's always something to keep your mind focused. And for me, having Logan out front for most of the race there, that was my focus. I was trying to block out everything on the racetrack, block out where my where the turn-in points are and stuff. Just be focused on chasing the car in front and staying within the gap, and it just becomes second nature once you're in that rhythm chasing a driver. I found that I made more mistakes when I had nobody around me to chase. So I love having somebody to chase and to make me a better driver. And I think chasing Logan for the whole race did that, and that's what the whole series is about. And having fun and getting better. And I think that's we put on a great race.
Absolutely. I think it was a fun one to watch, especially one of the better finishes we've had in this series. I think it was great to watch, and I know part of the time, obviously, I had some time to kill because when you guys start to separate out, and I had full trust in all the guys at the front there that none of them were going to make any too many mistakes that would need to be cut on the broadcast. So I was pretty confident that once we got to a good battle, it would be a great finish, and we had that. I mean, in the last pit stop cycle, right when Michael came up right behind Logan, and you guys had that final battle for the last two laps, it was great to watch. So I thank both of you guys for making it such an entertaining race. I guess finally, the final thing I would ask, speaking of which, maybe I'll direct this to you, Logan, is speaking of the pit strategy. I mean, it was a 10-lap race, so obviously you only have so many opportunities to come into the pits. Was it at all up in the air before the race how long you'd want to go on pit stop stints? Were you thinking like 4 laps, 5 laps? And I know you came in a little bit early on that second stint, but just kind of walk us through kind of what was your plan there regarding fuel strategy and such.
So, the first stint was like pretty ordinary. You know, just go as long as fuel will take you, and then don't take tires because of tire compound that it is. So it's a radial with treads in it, which means that effectively it's a car tire, right? It's not a race car tire, like it's not a slick. It's actually something that you would probably find on the car that you have in your driveway right now. And it obviously those tires like last super long. So the more you drive them, it's almost as if the faster they get, the warmer they get, you know, the more temp they get, and they just overall get faster the more and more you drive them. So you never try to switch tires because they take so long to warm up. Like they're literally stones when you come out of the pits with a fresh set. So through the whole time, I never changed tires at all, and I don't think anyone else did. You know, that was like top 5. And then second stint, I believe I got some front wing damage from going over a curb, like just rejoining the track. I think that I went into the grass a little bit, and there was a really big curb at the point where I was re-entering the track. And I got a little bit of front wing damage, and I realized that Michael was like gaining really, really fast. So I tried to pit the next lap to try and fix that, and I think that it worked, but it ultimately gave Michael the advantage because he could go longer, and he could also take less fuel, so that his pit stop was shorter than mine because I had to take max fuel to get to the end. So he was able to come out really, really close to me, as you said, came out right side by side with me, and then we had the fight to the end.
Well, you certainly did, and yeah. Again, Logan, you came probably 3 corners away from the win there. I'd argue even one or two there in the very end of the race. So absolutely no. I mean, nothing to feel bad about. I mean, if there was ever a way to lose a race like this, that was probably one of the ways to do it. It was as close as you'll ever have. And again, I mean, you talk about it there, the having the two of you at the front. I know Andrew was keeping up with you, Michael, and I think you were a good pace setter for him. And then Logan, I guess you were for Michael as well. So it was a great battle at the end there. And I'll probably have the wrap up here, and then we can do one more question for Michael. But absolutely, thank you, Logan, for coming out. It's as always. I think you're still the championship leader after this race, but it was a great performance all day, and again, 3 corners away from for getting your, I think, your 10th road course win in our series or something there. So I'll ask, as I always do, you want to do your shout outs and all that at the end of your interview?
I'd like to thank my family. I'd like to thank all the drivers that come out here and make this so exciting. I'd like to thank Prime Power Team for shipping us out to Mossport this Wednesday. It's honestly going to be so much fun. I'd like to thank you, Marshall, for, again, like, just making this something that I can come home to after an exhausting day at the track, and I can just have some fun, you know, and race for fun instead of trying to race for position or race for a championship. It's just really, it's overall fun and nice to do, just to race without worry.
Well, that's awesome. And I mean, again, that the series was started for that exact purpose as a substitute for the real life racing. So it's good to know that it's still going to factor into people's lives even when they get back out on the track. And I'm so glad to hear that you and so many other guys in our series are getting back out there. I wish I could say the same, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to make it back out to the karting track yet. But well, absolutely. I mean, thank you, Logan, for coming out and making the series as fun as you find it. So I'm super glad to hear that. And thank you again to your family, who I know come out for every broadcast, and they've been very active tonight in the chat for our kind of our trivia we've been doing. So it's a pleasure to have you, and it's a pleasure to have your family watching us. So thanks, Logan. Congrats on your second place. I mean, again, led every lap, but I think the last. So overall, congrats, Logan, and congrats on your second place tonight.
Yeah, thank you, man.
And after that, I guess we only have one more man to talk to. I'm going to ask you your final question here, Michael. But I mean, we talk about the track that we're going to this Sunday for round 6 of our series. The one that you picked for the All Star race last season to end off our year. So I mean, it's one that I know you have a personal relationship with. But just kind of talk it through for people that maybe haven't seen a race at Michigan, maybe didn't watch our final race of last season. How does it compare to our other NASCAR oval we've done this season, Talladega? And like, what are you looking forward to there on Sunday?
Yeah, it'll involve a lot of tire management. So you'll see the like similar kind of racing as Talladega in terms of three wide sometimes and the power of the draft and stuff. But you're not going to have cars hooked up in a big pack like you would Talladega. The tires fall off pretty quick there. Not as bad as the Xfinity car, but that we ran last year. But it'll still matter over the course of a run. And even fuel mileage. I just ran a race at Michigan in another league a couple weeks back, and we qualified up front, but ran out of gas at the very end. So Michigan always tends to set up fuel mileage races for whatever reason, just with the pack spreading out and everything like that. So it should put on a great race in terms of drafting and strategy and tire management and fuel. So definitely looking forward to that. But man, Nurburgring, I'm so glad I was on the schedule. That was a great pick, and that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, and it's important to mention that I think this is your first official road course race win in our series. So congratulations on that, Michael. You picked the most difficult one on iRacing to do it at. So that's a statement victory if I've ever heard of one. But well, overall, I mean, yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to Michigan on Sunday. I mean, you talk about it being potentially a fuel mileage race. I mean, our fuel mileage race at Charlotte was one of my favorite finishes we've ever had. So if we're looking for something very similar in that idea of a oval race with a great finish, it should be a great one to watch. But well, I'll give you your opportunity now for your sponsors and to give some shout outs to people at home.
Yeah, first off, we did bring back both the checkered flag and the steering wheel tonight, so I guess that crosses both of those things off the list there. I gotta thank HPP Simulation, clipping that Apex, Thumbs Up, Cancer Down, Ready to Frag, Fleximation Systems, Host Venom, Sim Racing App, CJ Automotive, Amthob, Adam Blattle, Spotlight, and Splash and Go Graphics.
Awesome. Well, thank you as usual, Michael. I mean, again, just the same way Logan does, you give people at the oval somebody to look up to there, and somebody who's paced to replicate and to try to make them better and better. And I mean, tonight maybe you've just become the new road course guy. Maybe we'll see you pick off every road course this season and make it into a bit of a streak. But I mean, you and Logan are still top two in the championship. You're the only two guys to win races this season, and you kind of you create a benchmark for everybody else out there. And I know that unfortunately Andrew's interview wasn't able to finish, but he's one of those guys that every week he's gotten his fourth third of the season. He's only had podiums this year. All 5 races we've had, he's been on the podium. So he's one of those guys that I think you've taught him so well that as the races go by, I think you and Logan might have a third main competitor in the championship battle, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. So absolutely congrats for tonight, and I'm looking forward to whenever the next time I talk to you may be. I mean, Michigan, I'd imagine you got a pretty good shot there on Sunday, but overall, I think you've proven your ability at road courses now, and overall, I'm looking forward to see how you do the next time we go out to one, which I believe is at Spa in, I guess, a week from today.
Yeah, Marshall, thanks for putting on the broadcast, and thanks for everybody tuning in on the chat with trivia there. David and Heather and Keith, thanks for always tuning in, and everybody else, great to have you on board watching Karts To Computers Racing Series.
Absolutely, couldn't said it better myself. So thank you, Michael. Have a good rest of your night, and again, congratulations on your first place position tonight at Nurburgring Nordschleife.
Thank you, Marshall.
And with that, we finish up your final interview of the night. Now we only have one more graphic to put up here, and it is your trivia winner graphic. Now I wasn't exactly sure who was going to win, so maybe what I should do is we'll do this. There we go. So I think that because in the chat there was some controversy there because I heard that David Pacza had apparently had some help there on his end because of course one of the rules of trivia you can't have help. Well, I guess you can, but you have to like phone a friend, and then if you use the internet to help you. So we'll just put this up. So that should cover myself so that everybody's on the graphic. So there you go. David Paxa or Keith Forsey. Congratulations to whichever one you want it. Maybe whoever it is, we can do a tiebreaker next race. We have something of this type and we can do more trivia for that race. But overall, thank you guys for watching. I think I can probably get one more final results up. There we go. I was going to pull it down, but I think it takes up less bandwidth if you just run it with no race on. So there you go. Hopefully everybody enjoyed kind of the new updated graphics tonight. As you can see, I put the track graphic there on this graphic because it's always been blank for the longest time. And I tried to add some new stuff in here tonight and some new transitions. So overall, I know we had some technical issues when it came to the internet connection, which I'll try to fix going forward. But overall, I think tonight was a great race. I know it was a little bit longer than usual and a little bit untraditional, but congrats to Michael for winning it, his first road course win. And thank you again to everybody there in the chat. Always a pleasure to have everybody in the in the chat. As I can see, David says he cheated. Well, there we go. So, good to see that I covered everybody in the graphic. But regardless, thank you everybody for participating. And well, it was just a very fun race tonight. It was something a little bit different. There's your final results tonight. Michael Chrobok, Logan Pacza, Andrew Bedrossian, your top three in both the race and the championship standings. Again, I don't have the updated championship standings yet, but again, if you check on the Facebook page at KTC Racing Series, I don't have it actually linked in the description below, but you can see the actual name there. So you just throw that into Facebook, and you'll see our series page where I will be posting tomorrow the updated standings and the announcement of your winner for tonight's race, as well as the race recap for round 3 that I will post sometime probably tomorrow. It's a little bit late tonight, but I want to give one more final shout out. It is my 1 year anniversary today with my girlfriend Mariana. You saw her in the chat a moment ago, so happy anniversary to her. It's been a wonderful 1 year, and I know tonight's race may have felt like a year, but a year in real time is, I'd argue, even better. So quick shout out to her for watching. I'm not sure if she still is. It's been a long one, but overall, thank you to her, and thank you to everybody else at home for coming out to watch us on your Friday night. I know sometimes these races can go late, and tonight's was a little bit later than usual, but overall, thank you everybody. It's been a pleasure to have you guys watching, and I know there were some issues today, but I think it was a good broadcast overall. So I look forward to seeing you guys out on Sunday for NASCAR race at Michigan in the Cup Series, and it'll probably be a little bit more of a traditional broadcast than usual there. So once again, thank you everybody for watching. I am your host, as usual, Marshall Crocker Jr. signing off, and yeah, have a good rest of your weekend, everybody.